We should break up. Jessica's voice was quiet, but the words hit Ethan's chest like a sledgehammer. He stood frozen, the boba tea in his hand slipping from his grasp. It hit the pavement with a sickening splat, the milky brown liquid splashing across his faded white sneakers. What? Ethan heard his own voice, dry and hollow. I thought we agreed. After graduation, we'd move to the city, get settled, and then what? Get married? Jessica cut him off, a bitter smile playing on her lips. Ethan, we're not in high school anymore. You can't even get into the grad program. What kind of future can you offer me? The June sun was brutal, but a chill spread through Ethan's body. From freshman year of high school to senior year of college, 7 years, all undone by 4 words, can't see a future. I can work hard, he pleaded. I already passed the first round for the internship at Starlight Interactive. Enough. Jessica's voice rose. That internship pays less than the rent on a basement apartment. My mom introduced me to a senior from the business school. His dad's a VP at Boeing. I'm sorry. Watching Jessica's retreating back, Ethan didn't follow. He knew some things couldn't be chased down. Back in the dorm, Ethan collapsed onto his bed, pulling a pillow over his head. His roommate, Mark, peeked in, saw the vibe, and wisely swallowed the joke he was about to make. Dude, stop playing dead, Mark said, tapping the bedpost. The club's end-of-year dinner is tonight. The Foundry, private room 302, 6:30. He paused. Jessica's not going if that helps. Ethan grunted in response. All he wanted was to rot in his bed until graduation. Come on, man, his other roommate, Kevin, chimed in. Half the girls in the computer science department have a crush on you. You're the coding god of this campus. Totally, Mark added. Even the Ice Queen herself liked your game design post. Ethan finally threw the pillow off. Sophia Hayes? That was for a club project. It's not like that. As the programming lead for the game design club and an honorary member of the anime club, Sophia was its president. Their interactions had been purely professional. She was the campus legend. Famously beautiful, famously aloof. The number of guys she turned down could fill a football roster. That evening, his roommates practically dragged him to the Foundry. The private room was already packed with a dozen members of the game design club, the air thick with smoke and laughter. Someone spotted him. Ethan's here. The shout was followed by a chorus of whoops. Ethan, over here. A freshman named Leo patted the empty seat next to him. No one's leaving sober tonight. Ethan forced a smile, downing the beer someone handed him. The cold liquid slid down his throat, but did nothing to extinguish the ache in his chest. He drank one after another, as if he could drown out Jessica's voice. President's here. A stir at the door made Ethan look up. Sophia Hayes walked in. She was wearing a simple white t-shirt and light-washed jeans, her dark hair pulled back in a high ponytail, but she was still so beautiful it took your breath away. The noise in the room died down a few decibels. A couple of guys unconsciously straightened their posture. Sorry, I was finishing on my senior project, Sophia said, her voice as cool and clear as glass. Her eyes swept the room, finally landing on Ethan, the only person not staring at her. Sophia, you're late. 3-shot penalty, someone yelled. She smiled faintly and, to everyone's surprise, downed 3 full beers without hesitation, earning a round of applause. Ethan glanced at her, surprised. He'd never pegged the campus Ice Queen as someone who could hold her liquor. A few rounds later, Ethan's vision was starting to swim. He vaguely heard someone suggest a game of truth or dare, followed by more raucous cheering. Ethan got dare, Leo announced loudly. The challenge is to link arms and drink with the third person to your right. Ethan squinted, counting. The third person to his right was Sophia. The room exploded. Whistles and catcalls echoed off the walls. Sophia's expression tightened for a fraction of a second, but with everyone watching, she picked up her glass. Ethan staggered to his feet, looping his arm through hers. He caught the faint scent of jasmine from her hair. To the happy couple, some idiot shouted, and the room roared with laughter. Ethan felt Sophia's arm tense, but her gaze remained perfectly calm. As the beer went down, some devil possessed him. He leaned close to her ear. They all call you the Ice Queen, but you seem pretty chill to me. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You're drunk. No way. Ethan shot back, cracking open another beer. I can keep going. Want to bet? A flicker of interest crossed her eyes. What's the wager? A reckless idea, fueled by alcohol and heartbreak, surged through him. I heard you just need a driver's license to get a marriage license at City Hall. But we couldn't do it. The room went dead silent, then erupted in an even bigger wave of chaos. A blush crept up Sophia's cheeks, whether from the alcohol or his words. He couldn't tell. Are you serious? She asked. Totally. Ethan slapped his wallet on the table, his ID visible. Don't be a chicken. Sophia looked at him for a long, quiet moment. Then, incredibly, she pulled out her own ID. Let's go. The rest of the night was a blur. Ethan remembered getting in an Uber, filling out forms, a flash from a camera, pressing his thumb onto an ink pad. After that, nothing. Blinding sunlight dragged Ethan from his stupor. His head was splitting, and his throat felt like sandpaper. Fumbling for water, his hand hit a small, hard-covered booklet. What the hell is this? He squinted at the little red book, the gold-embossed words on the front snapping him instantly awake. Marriage certificate. He shot upright, his hands trembling as he opened it. His own photo stared back at him, but the name next to it hit him like a lightning bolt. Sophia Hayes. Oh my God. Ethan's horrified scream woke the entire dorm. I'm married. He stared at the official seal on the certificate, his fingers shaking. The county's red ink stamp looked like a brand seared over their photo together. In the picture, he was grinning like an idiot. Sophia had her lips pressed into a tight line, but there was a rare softness in the corner of her eyes. This can't be happening. He slammed the certificate shut, then carefully opened it again, as if flipping through it enough times would magically change the name back to Jessica. But no matter how many times he looked, the name Sophia Hayes was still printed mockingly in the spouse field. Ethan, you're finally awake. The dorm room door slammed open, and Mark and Kevin rushed in, their faces a mixture of awe and excitement Ethan had never seen before. You're a legend, man. You bagged the Ice Queen and didn't even tell us. Mark snatched the marriage certificate, and he and Kevin huddled over it like it was the Dead Sea Scrolls. Give it back. Ethan lunged, snatching the booklet. His temples were pounding. What the hell happened? How could I possibly have married Sophia? You're the one who did it, Kevin said, pulling out his phone and opening the campus subreddit. Look, you're a trending topic. Shocker. Campus beauty Sophia Hayes and CS major Ethan Miller spotted at City Hall late last night. Ethan grabbed the phone. There was a picture of him and Sophia standing outside the county clerk's office. His arm was around her waist, her head was on his shoulder, and they looked intimate. The comment section was a war zone. WTF. That's my goddess. Who's this guy? That broke dude from the CS department. He's obviously after the Hayes family money. Don't be a hater. The guy won the national game design competition. A knot of anxiety tightened in Ethan's stomach. He tried to piece together the night, but all he got were fragments. The stuffy air in the Uber, the scent of jasmine in Sophia's hair, the feel of the pen scratching against paper as he signed. We really got married. Ethan's voice was a hoarse whisper. 100%, Mark said, clapping him on the shoulder. Leo said you two were drinking and suddenly announced you were going to get a marriage license. Nobody could stop you. Dude, you're always so quiet, but when you make a move, you drop a bombshell. Ethan grabbed his phone. Sophia's contact was already there, saved under wife. His finger hovered over the call button, hesitating. Call her, Kevin urged. Ask your wife how her night was. Shut up. Ethan kicked at him, took a deep breath, and hit dial. The phone rang for what felt like an eternity before she picked up. Her voice was husky with sleep. Hello. Sophia, it's me, Ethan. His throat was tight. We seem to have gotten married, she finished for him, her tone as placid as if she were discussing the weather. You remember? Ethan's voice shot up an octave. I thought we both blacked out. I have a higher tolerance than you, she said dismissively. What's up? What's up? Ethan couldn't believe his ears. They'd gotten married on a drunken whim, and she was asking him what's up? We need to get a divorce, obviously. Ethan was practically shouting now. This was a huge mistake. We need to go back to City Hall right now and fix this. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Can't today. Busy, she said, her voice suddenly turning cold. I have to prep for my senior project review. Then tomorrow. Busy tomorrow too. Ethan's temples throbbed. Sophia, are you kidding me? This isn't a game. I'm well aware of what this is, she said, her tone unnervingly calm. Let's meet at the campus coffee shop. 3 o'clock this afternoon. I'm going back to sleep now. The line went dead. Ethan stared at his phone in disbelief. The Ice Queen, the unattainable goddess of the entire university, was completely unfazed by his demand for a divorce. What did she say? Mark asked, leaning in. She said. Ethan swallowed hard. She doesn't have time to get divorced. Kevin let out a low whistle. Damn, Ethan, you hit the jackpot. Sophia's family owns a publicly traded company. She's loaded. Shut up. Ethan ran a hand through his hair in frustration. There has to be a misunderstanding. His phone buzzed. A text message. He opened it. It was from Jessica. Heard you got married. Congrats. Ethan stared at the message, a dull ache in his chest. The girl who dumped him yesterday was congratulating him today? As he was wondering how to reply, another message popped up. Are you free tonight? I want to give you back some of your stuff. Ethan scoffed and deleted the entire conversation. 7 years together, and she couldn't even wait 24 hours to purge him from her life. Dude, check the subreddit. Mark yelled. Someone posted a whole photo series of you two getting a license. Ethan lunged for Mark's phone. An account called Campus Insider had posted a gallery. Him and Sophia filling out forms, pressing their thumbs on the ink pad, and even a close-up of him putting a ring on her finger. Wait, a ring? He looked down at his left hand. Sure enough, a simple silver band was circling his ring finger. And on the marriage certificate, under the commemorative items section, it was written, 1 pair of matching silver rings. Where did I get the money for rings? Ethan muttered. Your credit card, probably, Kevin said knowingly. Last night you were yelling about how you couldn't let Sophia feel cheaped out and had to buy the most expensive ones. Ethan covered his face in despair. His credit limit was only $2,000. It was completely maxed out. At 2:50 p.m., Ethan arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early. He picked a table in the darkest corner and ordered a black coffee he couldn't bring himself to drink. At 3 o'clock sharp, Sophia appeared. She was wearing a light blue sundress, her dark hair falling over her shoulders, making her skin look like porcelain. The coffee shop quieted for a moment, all eyes drawn to her. Sorry to keep you waiting, she said, sitting down across from him and ordering a latte. Ethan got straight to the point. Why won't you get a divorce? Sophia stirred the latte the server had just brought, not answering right away. Sunlight streamed through the window, catching on her eyelashes and casting tiny shadows. I need to be married, she said finally, her voice soft but firm. What? Ethan thought he'd misheard. Sophia looked up, meeting his eyes directly. My father is trying to arrange a marriage for me with the son of the Vance Global CEO. Being married gets me out of it. Ethan's jaw nearly hit the table. So, you used me. It's mutually beneficial. Sophia took a sip of her latte. You've been trying to get into Starlight Interactive, right? My uncle is a VP there. Ethan shot to his feet, the chair screeching against the floor. I don't need that kind of deal. Heads turned all over the coffee shop. Sophia's expression didn't change. She gently tugged on his sleeve. Sit down. Do you want everyone to hear this? Ethan reluctantly sat, lowering his voice. Sophia, I don't know what your family situation is, but no matter how broke I am, I would never use a marriage as a business transaction. A strange emotion flickered in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. 3 months. That's all I need. We maintain this marriage in name only for 3 months. After I graduate and move to the States, we get a divorce. In return, I'll help you secure that offer from Starlight. Impossible. Ethan said, his refusal absolute. We're getting a divorce today. Sophia actually smiled, a slight, unnerving curve of her lips that made his heart stutter. Ethan, do you know what the penalty for bigamy is? What bigamy? We're not. His voice trailed off as his face went pale. You? I looked it up, she said, pulling a folder from her bag and pushing it across the table. This is the prenuptial agreement you signed last night. If you file for divorce within 3 months, you owe me $500,000 in damages. Ethan's hands trembled as he opened the folder. On the last page was his signature, a drunken scrawl, but unmistakably his. This is impossible, he whispered. I would never sign something like this. People do stupid things when they're drunk, Sophia said, sipping her latte gracefully. Now, can we discuss how we're going to get through the next 3 months? Ethan stared at the agreement, his eyes catching on a detail. Wait, this only says I can initiate a divorce. But if you do, I won't. She cut him off. Unless what? A cunning light danced in her eyes. Unless you seriously violate our marital vows. Cheating, domestic abuse, or... She paused. Publicly admitting this whole thing is a joke. It hit him like a ton of bricks. He'd been set up. Sophia had planned this, and in his drunken stupor, he'd walked right into her trap. Why me? He asked, the words tasting like ash. The number of guys chasing you could stretch to the campus gates. Why pick me? Sophia was quiet for a moment, the sunlight tracing the soft line of her jaw. Because you don't like me. Those other guys, she explained softly, they either want my family's money or they're obsessed with my looks. You're the only one, Ethan, who never gave me a second glance. He wanted to say it wasn't true. Of course he'd noticed her. What straight guy on campus hadn't? But he'd never really thought about her in that way. They were from different worlds. 3 months. I go abroad, you get your job offer, and we go our separate ways, Sophia said, standing up. My father wants to meet you tomorrow. 10 a.m. Dress nicely. Don't embarrass me. She left a $100 bill on the table and swept out of the coffee shop. Ethan sat frozen, staring at the damned prenup, realizing he was caught in something far more complicated than he'd imagined. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stay away from my daughter, or you'll regret it. Harrison Hayes. Ethan let out a bitter laugh and texted back. Mr. Hayes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. There was no reply. Ethan stood in front of his closet, staring at his only two presentable shirts. One was a faded blue plaid button-down. The other was a slim-fit black one he'd bought for a competition last year, the cuffs already starting to fray. Damn, dressed nicely, he muttered, grabbing the black shirt and a pair of slacks that were vaguely formal. Sophia's father wanted to see him at 10. It was already 9:20, and he hadn't even had breakfast. His phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Dude, the whole campus is talking about you and Sophia. The subreddit is on fire. How'd you tame the Ice Queen? Teach me your ways, master. Ethan tossed the phone onto his bed in frustration. Tamer? He was the one who'd been completely played. That prenup was like a vice grip, leaving him no room to struggle. He buttoned a shirt, adjusting the collar in the dorm's tiny, cracked mirror. The guy staring back had dark circles under his eyes and a 5 o'clock shadow, looking nothing like the kind of man who would marry into the Hayes family. Whatever. It's only for 3 months, Ethan said to himself, fastening the top button. It immediately felt like it was choking him. He was just leaving the dorm when a few underclassmen he recognized cornered him. Ethan, can we get your autograph? A kid with glasses asked excitedly, holding out a notebook. Your story with Sophia is so inspiring. What story? Ethan asked, completely lost. The poor kid who wins the heart of the rich girl. Another one chimed in. It's all over the subreddit. They're saying you won her over with your game design. Ethan's jaw twitched. The campus rumor mill was working overtime. He quickly signed his name and practically ran toward the campus entrance, only to stop dead in his tracks around a corner. Sophia was backed against a wall by a tall man in a tailored suit. The man had his back to Ethan, one hand braced against the wall, effectively trapping Sophia. Even without seeing her face, Ethan could tell from her rigid posture that she was uncomfortable. I told you, I'm married, Sophia's voice was ice. Don't be ridiculous, Soph, the man chuckled. Your father told me everything. It was a mistake. You're getting it annulled today. Ethan froze. So this was the son of the Vance global CEO. He looked slick, sure, but there was an arrogant, condescending air about him that rubbed Ethan the wrong way. It wasn't a mistake, Sophia said, her voice rising slightly. My husband and I are serious. Husband, the man scoffed. That broke student? What can he give you? Soph, stop being childish. Our families, she said. She's married. Ethan strode forward, grabbing the man's arm and pulling him away from Sophia. The man stumbled back, turning to glare at Ethan. Who the hell are you? Ethan ignored him, stepping next to Sophia and instinctively wrapping an arm around her waist. Honey, who's this? He felt Sophia's body go rigid for a second before she relaxed, even leaning into his embrace. This is Cameron Vance from Vance Global. Friend my father introduced me to. A friend. Cameron narrowed his eyes, sizing Ethan up. So you're the little opportunist who took advantage of her. Ethan felt Sophia's fingers dig lightly into his side, a clear signal. A grin spread across his face. Mr. Vance, right? A pleasure. It's true Sophia and I haven't known each other long, but sometimes when fate calls, you just have to answer. He gave her shoulder an affectionate squeeze. Right, babe? Sophia played along, a sweet smile appearing on her face that Ethan had never seen before. It was love at first sight. Cameron's face darkened. Soph, you don't have to do this, Mr. Vance. Ethan interrupted, his tone still polite, but now firm. Please call my wife Sophia, or Mrs. Miller. Soph is a little too familiar. I don't really like other men calling my wife that. Even Ethan was surprised by how natural the word sounded. He'd never known he had it in him to act. Sophia glanced up at him, a flicker of surprise and approval in her eyes. Cameron sneered. Fine, keep up the act. But Mr. Hayes has already made the arrangements. You two are getting a divorce today. He leaned closer to Ethan, his voice a low threat. Kid, don't get in over your head. You can't afford to mess with the Hayes family. With that, he straightened his tie and strode away. As soon as Cameron was out of sight, Sophia pulled away from Ethan, the sweet smile vanishing instantly. Thanks. The two simple words somehow annoyed Ethan. 1 minute it was love at first sight, and babe, the next she was back to being an ice sculpture. This woman could switch personalities faster than he could switch tabs in his browser. Your dad's expecting us at 10? Ethan checked his watch. We have 20 minutes. Sophia nodded, her gaze sweeping over his clothes. Your collar is crooked. She reached out to fix it, her movements so practiced they seemed second nature. Ethan smelled the faint perfume on her wrist and held his breath. You were a good scene partner just now, Sophia said quietly, her fingers brushing against his jaw, sending a shiver down his spine. Ethan cleared his throat. So that Vance guy is the one your dad wants you to marry? Cameron Vance, heir to Vance Global, Harvard MBA, 32, divorced. Sophia listed off the details as if reading a spec sheet. My father thinks he has unlimited potential. Ethan let out a low whistle. Sounds like a real catch. Sophia shot him a cold look. If you're interested, I can set you two up. I'll pass. Ethan held up his hands in surrender. Not really into divorce trust fund guys. A barely perceptible smile touched her lips before disappearing. We should go. My father doesn't like to be kept waiting. The Hayes family car, a discreet black Mercedes, was waiting at the campus gate. The driver was a stern-looking middle-aged man who gave Ethan a barely concealed frown. The ride was filled with an awkward silence. Staring out the window at the passing city, Ethan realized he was completely unprepared for what was coming. What I need to know, he asked, breaking the silence. Your family basics, what your dad likes, and our love story. Sophia thought for a moment. My family started in electronic components. Now we're in semiconductors, AI, and green energy. My dad is self-made. He hates sycophants. My mom died when I was 10. He remarried once, then got divorced. She paused. As for our story, love at first sight, Ethan suggested, half joking. Too fake, she said, shaking her head. Let's say we met in a club, and it developed over time. But getting married so soon? That doesn't add up. Sophia bit her lip. Then let's say we've actually been secretly dating for over a year. We only went public when we got the license. Ethan raised an eyebrow. So I'm the reliable boyfriend who can keep a secret? No, Sophia said, a corner of her mouth lifting. It was me who didn't want to go public. Because you were too poor, and I was embarrassed. Ethan nearly choked. You're certainly direct. It's the kind of thing my father understands, she said, looking out the window. In his world, even emotions can be calculated. The car pulled up to a modern skyscraper. For gilded words, Hayes Industries gleamed in the sun. A wave of anxiety washed over Ethan. This was bigger than he'd imagined. The Hayes family wasn't just rich, they ran an empire. The elevator shot straight to the top floor. At the end of the hall was a pair of massive oak doors, fronted by a desk where a perfectly coiffed secretary sat. Miss Hayes, the secretary greeted her, her eyes flicking over Ethan with a practiced, appraising glance. Mr. Hayes is waiting for you. The office beyond the doors was cavernously large, with a floor-to-ceiling window offering a panoramic view of the entire city. A man stood with his back to them, speaking on the phone. I told you, that acquisition needs to be finalized by next week, the man's voice boomed with authority. I don't want to hear excuses. He hung up and slowly turned around. Harrison Hayes looked younger than Ethan expected, maybe early 50s, and was in good shape, lacking the potbelly of many corporate executives. His features were sharp, and Ethan could see where Sophia got her delicate eyebrows and eyes. But those eyes, they were sharp as a hawk's, and right now, they were fixed on Ethan with cold scrutiny. Dad, Sophia said softly. Sit. Harrison Hayes gestured to the leather sofa in the seating area, taking the main armchair for himself. His gaze never left Ethan. You're Ethan Miller? Yes, Mr. Hayes, Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. I hear you got a marriage license with my daughter yesterday. Harrison got straight to the point. Ethan felt Sophia's hand discreetly take his. Her fingertips were ice cold. Yes, sir. How long have you known each other? Over a year, Ethan replied, sticking to the script. We met in a club on campus. Why the sudden marriage? This time, Sophia answered. It wasn't sudden. We've been together for a while. We just kept it private. Harrison scoffed. Sophia, do you take me for a fool? Before yesterday, I had never even heard this boy's name. That's because I didn't want her to go public, Ethan interjected. My family background is modest. I'm not in her league. But she insisted. This ad-lib earned him a surprised look from Sophia. He squeezed her hand, signaling her to play along. So you two are truly in love? Harrison's voice was dripping with sarcasm. Yes, Ethan said, meeting his gaze directly. I know it's hard for you to believe, but I will prove that I'm worthy of Sophia. Harrison suddenly stood up and walked over to Ethan, looking down on him. Kid, I ran a background check on you. Grew up in a small town, Father died early, mother's a schoolteacher. Your family is poor. Your grades are decent, but far from exceptional. What gives you the right to marry my daughter? Every word was a needle piercing Ethan's pride. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to stay calm. Mr. Hayes, I admit I have nothing right now, but I have the ability and the determination to make Sophia happy. Happy, Harrison said, as if he just heard the world's funniest joke. Do you have any idea how much one of my daughter's dresses costs? Does your internship salary even cover one of her dinners? Dad, Sophia shot to her feet. I am not a commodity. I have the right to choose who I marry. Harrison turned to her, his tone softening slightly. Sophia, you're young. You don't understand. An impulsive marriage like this won't last. And Cameron Vance is a better choice? Do you need me to remind you how his first wife died of depression? Sophia's voice trembled. Ethan looked at her, shocked. So that Cameron guy had that kind of skeleton in his closet. Harrison's expression turned grim. That was a rumor. Cameron is a capable young man who can help you run the company. I don't need his help, Sophia practically yelled. I am perfectly capable of managing my own career. Your career? Harrison sneered. That little game design studio of yours? Don't be naive. As the argument escalated, Ethan suddenly stood up. Mr. Hayes, could I speak with you alone? The office fell silent. Sophia stared at him in surprise, while Harrison narrowed his eyes. Oh, what do you have to say? A man-to-man conversation, Ethan said calmly. Just 5 minutes. Harrison studied him for a few seconds before nodding. Sophia, you can wait outside. Sophia hesitated, but a reassuring look from Ethan sent her out of the office. As soon as the door closed, Harrison's expression turned to ice. All right, talk. How much money will it take for you to leave my daughter? Ethan took a deep breath. I don't want money. Then what do you want? A chance, Ethan said, looking him straight in the eye. 3 months. Give me 3 months to prove myself. If at the end of that time, you still think I'm not good enough for Sophia, I'll leave on my own. Harrison was clearly not expecting this answer. 3 months. Yes. During that time, please stop arranging dates for Sophia and don't force us to get a divorce. Ethan paused. Of course, if you decide to use your power to break us up now, I can't stop you. But Sophia will resent you for the rest of her life. The last sentence seemed to strike a chord. Harrison was silent for a long time before finally speaking. Interesting. You're smarter than you look. He walked back to his desk and sat down. Fine. You have 3 months. But on one condition, during this time, I won't give Sophia a single dime. You two will have to live on your own. Ethan nodded. That's fair. And one more thing, Harrison added. If you don't leave on your own after 3 months, I will make sure you can't find a job in the city. I keep my promises. A cold sweat broke out on Ethan's back, but he didn't flinch. Deal. Harrison pressed the intercom. Sophia, come back in. Sophia entered, her eyes darting between the two men. What did you talk about? Your husband convinced me to give you 3 months, Harrison said, his voice surprisingly calm. I won't interfere during that time, but I also won't provide any financial support. If he can't prove he's worthy of you in 3 months, you get a divorce. Sophia looked at Ethan in astonishment. He gave her a subtle wink. Now, you can both leave, Harrison said, waving a hand dismissively. I have a meeting outside the building. Ethan let out a long breath. It felt like he'd just survived a battle. How did you convince him? Sophia asked, curious. Ethan grinned. A secret between men. Sophia rolled her eyes, but the corners of her mouth turned up slightly. Thank you. Don't mention it, Ethan said, checking his watch. Where to now? I have a class at 10:30. I'll give you a ride back to campus, Sophia said, as the driver pulled up. By the way, from today on, we have to live together. What? Ethan nearly bit his tongue. Live together? My dad will definitely have us watched, Sophia analyzed coolly. If he finds out we're living separately, he'll declare the marriage void immediately. Ethan rubbed his forehead. You probably should have led with that. And if I had, would you have agreed? She countered. No. That's why I didn't, Sophia said, pulling open the car door. Don't worry. I rented a 2-bedroom apartment. We'll each have our own space. Ethan sighed and got in the car. This ridiculous marriage was spiraling into something more complicated by the minute. Also, Sophia said, handing him a piece of paper, these are our house rules. Ethan took it and read the neatly printed list. 1. Separate rooms. No interfering in each other's private lives. 2. Maintain the image of a loving couple in public. 3. Do not disclose the true nature of the contractual marriage to outsiders without mutual consent. Can I add to this? Ethan asked. Sophia raised an eyebrow. What do you want to add? Ethan took out a pen and added a few more lines for no surprise appearances in the other person's bathroom. 5. Food in the fridge belongs to whoever bought it. Food thieves will be prosecuted. 6. The divorce is automatic after 3 months. No delays. Sophia looked at his additions and let out a small laugh. Childish. Takes one to know one, Ethan said, handing the paper back. So, this is basically a marriage of convenience. A marriage of what? The term seemed new to her. A formal marriage, Ethan explained. Fake marriage for a specific purpose, where we both live our own lives. Sophia considered this for a moment. More accurately, it's a contractual marriage. She looked out the window. We signed an agreement, remember? Ethan grimaced. Right? That damn prenup. 3 months, he told himself. Just survive these 3 months, and everything would go back to normal. But deep down, a small voice asked, can it really? Ethan stood in front of apartment 502 at 7, Lakeview Terrace, staring at the key in his hand. Sophia had given it to him half an hour ago. The key to their home. The word made his stomach churn. He and Sophia now had a home together, albeit a fake one. The key turned in the lock with a crisp click. The door swung open. He poked his head in cautiously. Anyone home? No answer. He sighed in relief and stepped into the unfamiliar space. The apartment was bigger than he expected. The living room flowed into an open-concept kitchen, with a glass door leading to a small balcony overlooking the distant lake. The furniture was minimalist and modern, all shades of gray and white, so clean it looked like a showroom. There was almost no sign of life. A sticky note was on the fridge, Sophia's handwriting as neat as a font. Your room is on the right. I'm at the studio. We'll be back late. There's food in the fridge. Heat it up yourself. Ethan pushed open the door to the right. His luggage was already neatly placed by the bed. The bed was made with a dark blue comforter. A brand new laptop sat on the desk with another sticky note. For work. Don't break it. He ran his hand over the top-of-the-line MacBook Pro, a mix of feelings churning inside him. This thing had to cost at least $2,000, and she just left it for him to use. Ethan opened his suitcase and started unpacking. He didn't have much, so it didn't take long. Looking around his new home, he felt a profound sense of unreality. Yesterday, he was just a regular college kid. Today, he was a married man living in a luxury apartment complex. The ringing of his phone broke the silence. The caller ID read Professor Davies. Hello, Professor Davies? Ethan, came the kind voice of his computer science department head. Do you have a minute to stop by my office? It's about the graduate program. The grad program. Ethan had almost forgotten. His grades were in the top 5 of his class. He had a strong shot. Of course. I'll be right there. After hanging up, Ethan quickly splashed some water on his face and headed out. His mind was so preoccupied with grad school that he didn't realize he'd become the center of attention on campus until he walked through the main gates. Students pointed and whispered as he passed. That's him, the guy who married Sophia Hayes. I heard he's just after her family's money. He's not even that good looking. What does she see in him? Ethan picked up his pace, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. He used to envy the campus celebrities. Now he knew being in the spotlight just sucked. Professor Davies' office door was ajar. Ethan knocked. Come in. The professor was a middle-aged man in his 50s, slightly bald, with a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He motioned for Ethan to sit. Ethan, is this business with Sophia Hayes true? Ethan's throat felt tight. Yes, Professor. Well, young people can be impulsive with their emotions, I understand, Professor Davies said, pushing his glasses up his nose. However, as a candidate for the graduate program, personal character is an important factor. A stone dropped in Ethan's stomach. Professor, I'm not sure I follow. There's been a report, the professor said, looking him directly in the eye, that you only got close to Sophia for her family's wealth. A rumor like that is very damaging for your application. Ethan clenched his fists. That's a lie. Sophia and I... He stopped. What could he say? That they had a fake marriage? That would kill his chances for sure. Easy now, Professor Davies said, holding up a hand. Personally, I believe in your character, but I'm not the only one on the review committee. His tone became pointed. You'd be wise to watch your step for a while. Leaving the office, Ethan felt like a weight was crushing his chest. The grad program was a cornerstone of his future plans. If this mess ruined it, Ethan, a familiar voice made him look up. Jessica Clark was standing at the end of the hall, wearing the same pale yellow dress she'd worn on their first date. Her hair was down, her smile as sweet as he remembered. For a dizzying second, he felt like he'd gone back in time. Jessica, he walked toward her instinctively. What are you doing here? I was asking Professor Miller a question, she said, tilting her head. I heard you got married. Congratulations. Her tone was light and casual, as if the heart-wrenching breakup had never happened. Ethan didn't know how to respond. Thanks, he said flatly. Sophia Hayes is the campus goddess, Jessica said, blinking. When did you two get together? I never knew a thing. Ethan grew wary. Since when was Jessica so interested in gossip? We met at a club. Been seeing each other for a while. Really? Jessica stepped closer, her familiar perfume making Ethan's head spin. Then why did someone see you on your wedding day, completely wasted and being practically carried into City Hall by Sophia? A cold sweat broke out on Ethan's back. Who said that? It's all over the campus subreddit, Jessica said, pulling out her phone and opening a thread. See? There are even pictures. In the photo, he was undeniably drunk out of his mind, draped over Sophia like a cheap suit. And Sophia's expression looked less like a blushing bride and more like a weary babysitter. Getting married on a whim is romantic, Ethan said, forcing a calm he didn't feel. It was spontaneous. Jessica's smile was knowing and sharp. Is that so? Then why did someone overhear you two in the coffee shop talking about a contractual marriage and a 3-month deadline? Ethan's heart stopped. Their conversation had been overheard. You must have misheard. A cool voice cut through the tension. Ethan turned to see Sophia standing a few feet away, a stack of books in her arms, her expression as cold as a winter morning. Sophia. Jessica's smile froze on her face. Sophia strode forward and smoothly linked her arm with Ethan's. My husband and I don't need to explain our relationship to anyone, especially not to you, Miss Ex-Girlfriend. Jessica's face paled. I was just concerned about Ethan. No need, Sophia cut her off. He has someone to be concerned about him now. She tugged on Ethan's arm. Let's go, honey. Time for dinner. Ethan let himself be pulled away, his mind still reeling. It wasn't until they were outside the building that Sophia released his arm, her expression returning to neutral. What did Professor Davies want? The grad program, Ethan said, his head clearing. Someone reported me, said I only married you for your money. Sophia frowned. Jessica, I don't know for sure, but she clearly knows something, Ethan said, rubbing his temples. Our conversation at the coffee shop must have been overheard. Sophia thought for a moment. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. How are you going to handle it? I have my ways, she said, checking her watch. I have another class. I'll see you tonight. Watching her walk away, Ethan realized how little he actually knew about his wife. What classes did she take? Where was her studio? Who were her friends? He had no idea. During his afternoon programming class, Ethan couldn't focus. The professor's lecture was just white noise. All he could think about was the grad program, Jessica, and Sophia. The moment the bell rang, he bolted from the classroom and headed straight for the anime club's activity room. As honorary president, Sophia was likely to be there. The door was slightly ajar. As he was about to knock, he heard Sophia's voice from inside. Take that thread down. If anyone posts anything similar, ban their account. But, President, a male voice hesitated. The subreddit is supposed to be for free speech. When you were all using the 10 high-end gaming PCs I donated, did you say anything about free speech? Sophia's voice was cold. Ethan froze. So this was how Sophia handled things? By pulling strings? He was about to turn and leave when he heard her speak again. By the way, how are the preparations for next week's charity sale? Almost done. We also have the files for the 3 low-income students you're anonymously sponsoring. They'll think it's a scholarship from the university. Anonymous sponsoring? Ethan's ears perked up. Good. Make sure no one knows it was me, Sophia's voice softened. Especially Amy Zhang from the physics department. She's very proud. President, why do you always do this stuff anonymously? The guy asked. After a few seconds of silence, Sophia said quietly, because you don't help people to be thanked. Ethan took a few quiet steps back, then deliberately made his footsteps heavier as he approached the room again, pretending he'd just arrived. When he pushed the door open, Sophia was talking to the club's vice president. She looked up, clearly startled to see him. What are you doing here? She asked. I want to take you to dinner, Ethan said, making up an excuse on the spot. To thank you for saving me back there. Sophia nodded, gave a few last-minute instructions to the VP, and grabbed her backpack. Let's go. They walked side by side across campus as the setting sun stretched their shadows long behind them. As they passed a cluster of bushes, Sophia suddenly stopped, pulled a small bag from her backpack, and crouched down. Here, kitty, she called softly. Time to eat. An orange tabby cat emerged from the bushes, rubbing affectionately against her hand. Ethan watched in surprise as she expertly poured kibble into a small bowl and filled another with water. You have a cat? He asked. "They're campus strays," she said, gently stroking the cat's back. "I've set up a few shelters and hidden spots and come by to feed them." Ethan crouched down, watching the cat eat ravenously. "What's its name?" "This one's Goldie," she said, a small smile playing on her lips. "There's also Shadow, Snowball, and Patches in different parts of campus." "You named all the stray cats." Sophia nodded, suddenly looking a bit embarrassed. "They're sweet. It's just that no one takes care of them." She packed up the cat food. "Come on." Ethan followed her, suddenly seeing Sophia in a completely different light from the campus ice queen. Sponsoring students, feeding stray cats. Who would have thought the untouchable Sophia Hayes did these things? They chose a small restaurant just off campus. After they ordered, Ethan couldn't help but ask, "Do you do that kind of thing often?" The anonymous sponsoring. Sophia's hand paused. "You heard." "A little," he admitted. "Why keep it a secret?" "It's a hassle," she said curtly. "And sometimes it puts pressure on the people you're helping." Ethan thought of the laptop she'd given him and suddenly understood. "Like when you bought me a computer but said it was for work." The tips of Sophia's ears turned pink. "That's different. We're partners." The equipment was necessary. The food arrived, and they ate in comfortable silence. Ethan watched Sophia out of the corner of his eye. She ate elegantly, taking small bites, her chopsticks held high. She would occasionally blow gently on a piece of food that was too hot. It was a world away from the cold, arrogant image she projected in public. "Why did you help me?" Ethan asked suddenly. "What you said to Jessica earlier." Sophia put down her chopsticks. "The contract states we maintain the image of a loving couple in public." But there was hardly anyone there. "The hallway has security cameras," she said calmly. "My father might have people watching us." For some reason, Ethan felt a pang of disappointment. So it was all just an act. After dinner, Sophia said she had to go back to her studio and told Ethan to go home first. Halfway back, he remembered he'd left his programming homework in the dorm and turned around. As he passed the small grove of trees behind the science building, he heard raised voices. He wasn't one to eavesdrop, but a familiar name made him stop. "Sophia doesn't love you. She's just using you." It was Jessica's voice. "That's none of your business." The responding male voice was low and unfamiliar. Ethan moved closer, hiding behind a large oak tree. Across from Jessica stood a tall man in a suit. It was Cameron Vance from that morning. "What do you mean it's not my business?" Jessica said, her voice filled with agitation. "Ethan and I were together for 7 years. I know him better than anyone. He's not good enough for Sophia." Cameron sneered. "And what do you suggest?" "I can help you," Jessica said, stepping closer. "I know Ethan's weaknesses. He's applying to the grad program right now. If a rumor got out that he's a gold digger." Ethan's blood ran cold. So it was Jessica who started the rumors. And now she was teaming up with Cameron Vance? "Interesting," Cameron said, pulling out a business card and handing it to her. "Let's talk more later." Ethan wanted to rush out and expose them, but his rational mind stopped him. It would only tip them off. He quietly took a picture of the two of them with his phone and waited until they left before stepping out, a fire of anger burning in his chest. It was almost 10 by the time he got back to the apartment. It was quiet, except for a light on in the study. Ethan pushed the door open to see Sophia focused on her computer screen, design sketches spread all over her desk. "You're back?" she asked without looking up. "Yeah." Ethan walked up behind her and saw a game environment on the screen. "Is this your senior project?" Sophia nodded. "A virtual reality interactive game, still in the debugging phase." The intricate graphics drew Ethan in. The scene was an ethereal forest with incredibly realistic lighting effects. Leaves swayed in the breeze, and sunlight dappled through the canopy. "This is amazing," he said, genuinely impressed. "What engine are you using?" Sophia finally turned to look at him, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "You know VR design?" "A little," Ethan said modestly, though he'd taught himself VR development back in sophomore year. "Your lighting system is incredible, but it looks like you're having some issues with the interaction physics." He pointed to a small bug where the character model clipped through some foliage. Sophia's eyes lit up. "You saw it. I've been stuck on that all week." For the next 2 hours, they were completely lost in a technical discussion. Ethan helped her tweak a few lines of code, fixing the annoying interaction bug. In return, Sophia showed him some tricks in a professional software suite that blew his mind. "It's already 12:30, Sophia said, glancing at the clock. "Do you have class tomorrow?" Ethan shook his head. "But you do, right? I remember you saying so this morning." "Skipping it," she said, stretching. "This bug has been killing me for a week. Solving it is worth celebrating." She stood up. "There's beer in the fridge. Want one?" Ethan stared at her, surprised. The prim and proper Sophia from campus pulled all-nighters coding and drank beer. She seemed to read his mind and smiled slightly. What? You thought I only drink red wine and listen to the opera? A little, Ethan admitted. People have many sides, she said, retrieving 2 cans of beer and tossing one to him. At school, I'm the club president. At home, I'm a hermit. They sat on the balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, talking about everything and nothing. After a few sips of beer, Sophia started to open up. Ethan learned that she had loved game design since she was a kid, but her father considered it a waste of time and forced her to major in business administration. So I secretly started my own studio and entered competitions, she said, taking a long drink. The prize money from a national award I won last year all went into buying new equipment. Your dad doesn't know? He knows, but he doesn't care, she said, her voice losing its cheer. As long as I follow his plan, get married, have kids, he doesn't care about the rest. Ethan suddenly felt a pang of sympathy for her. The Ice Queen was trapped in her own gilded cage, perhaps even less free than he was. What are you going to do in 3 months? He asked. Really go to the States? She nodded. The game design program at USC. I already have the acceptance letter. My dad doesn't know. He thinks I'm going to Harvard for my MBA. Quite the deception, Ethan said with a grin. Well, good luck. Sophia turned to look at him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. Good luck with the grad program, too. The mention of the grad program reminded Ethan of what he'd overheard earlier. His smile faded. There's something you should know. He pulled out his phone and showed her the picture of Jessica and Cameron. Sophia's expression turned to ice. I knew it was him. You're not surprised? Cameron will stoop to anything, she said with a sneer. He drove his ex-wife to suicide, though he paid enough money to bury all the evidence. A chill went down Ethan's spine. So what do we do? Don't worry, Sophia said, putting her phone away. I'll handle it. There's that phrase again, Ethan said, a bit annoyed. Sophia, this is about my future. I have a right to know what you're planning. Sophia was quiet for a moment. Fine, she said finally. I know the university president's wife. She's the faculty advisor for the anime club. I'll ask her to help ensure the grad school review committee is fair. Ethan's eyes widened. You're just going to. It's not pulling strings. It's just making sure the review is fair, Sophia added quickly, and not influenced by baseless rumors. Ethan didn't know what to say. On one hand, he hated the idea of using connections. On the other hand, without her help, his grad school dreams might actually be dead. Thank you, he finally said, his voice a little strained. Sophia shook her head. Don't thank me. You got dragged into this because of me. It's my responsibility to fix it. They finished their beers in silence and went to their separate rooms. Lying in bed, Ethan's mind was racing. Everything he'd learned tonight had completely changed his perception of Sophia. She wasn't just some untouchable campus beauty. She was a real person with dreams, secrets, and a warmth she kept hidden. What scared him more was the realization that he was starting to look forward to seeing her every day, to hearing her talk, to watching the way her brow furrowed when she was concentrating on her work. The feeling was dangerous. This was a business deal. In 3 months, they would go their separate ways. He couldn't let himself get attached. He rolled over, trying to force the thought from his head. But the image he couldn't shake was Sophia's eyes, bright and clear in the moonlight. At 3 a.m, Ethan was jolted awake by a harsh coughing sound. He groggily opened his eyes. The coughing was coming from Sophia's room, a ragged, hacking noise that sounded awful in the dead quiet of the night. He hesitated, then knocked on her door. You okay in there? No answer, just another fit of gut-wrenching coughs. Sophia? Ethan tried the doorknob. It wasn't locked. He pushed the door open. In the dim light from the hallway, he could see her curled up in bed, her face flushed, her forehead beaded with sweat. Ethan, her voice was so hoarse it was almost unrecognizable. What time is it? 3 a.m., he said, walking to her bedside. He instinctively reached out and touched her forehead, pulling his hand back from the heat. You're burning up. What's your temperature? She weakly pointed to a thermometer on the nightstand. Ethan picked it up. 102. 5 F. We need to go to the hospital, he said firmly. No hospital, she mumbled, struggling to sit up. There's medicine in the drawer. I'll be fine. Ethan found some fever reducer and a packet of cold medicine and went to the kitchen for a glass of warm water. When he came back, Sophia was leaning against the headboard, eyes closed, her breathing shallow. Her long hair was stuck to her sweaty face, all traces of the campus Ice Queen gone. Take this. Ethan helped her sit up, holding the pills and water to her lips. She obediently swallowed them, but grimaced when she drank the fizzy medicine. It's so bitter. The childish complaint caught Ethan off guard. He never imagined the great Sophia Hayes would be afraid of bitter medicine. Just bear with it, he said, his voice softening unconsciously. I'll give you a piece of candy when you're done. She shot him a weak glare, but pinched her nose and downed the rest of the glass. True to his word, Ethan magically produced a hard candy from his pocket, his personal stash for late-night coding sessions. Here, Sophia took the candy, her fingertips brushing his palm. They were scorching hot. She unwrapped it and popped it in her mouth, a hint of color returning to her pale lips. Thanks, she whispered, her voice still raspy. Do you have a first aid kit in your studio? Ethan asked. I'll get a wet cloth for your forehead. She nodded slightly. Under the bookshelf in the studio. But don't touch anything else. Got it, Ethan said with a tired smile. Sick as a dog and still protective of her precious studio. Sophia's studio was her fortress, the door plastered with a do not enter without permission sign. Ethan pushed it open gently, fumbled for the light switch, and froze. The walls were covered in game design sketches, programming algorithms, and project timelines. But that wasn't what shocked him. On the wall directly across from her desk, there were over a dozen neatly arranged printouts and newspaper clippings, all about him. CS Major Ethan Miller wins National Programming Gold Medal. Game Design Club's team, led by Ethan Miller, shortlisted for International Indie Game Festival. Ethan Miller, the coding genius from small town. Ethan stood there, a lump forming in his throat. The articles spanned 3 years. He'd forgotten about some of them himself. Tacked to the side was a sticky note in Sophia's neat handwriting. His approach to light rendering is unique. Could be useful. Did you find a kit? Sophia's cough echoed from the bedroom, pulling him back to reality. He quickly crouched down, found a first aid kit under the bookshelf, and grabbed a washcloth from the bathroom. When he returned to her room, she seemed to have fallen asleep, her long lashes casting soft shadows on her cheeks. He gently placed the cool, damp cloth on her forehead, his mind replaying the image of the clippings on her studio wall. You're still here. Sophia's eyes fluttered open. Her voice was weak, but clear. Yeah, just wanted to watch over you for a bit, Ethan said, pulling a chair to her bedside. Do you always work yourself this sick? She shook her head slightly. I got caught in the rain yesterday. Ethan remembered then. There had been a sudden downpour yesterday afternoon. He'd been in class, but Sophia must have been out without an umbrella. Why didn't you call me to bring you one? You were in class, she said, closing her eyes. Besides, I'm used to it, handling things myself. For some reason, that sentence twisted something in his chest. He remembered her saying her mother died young and her father was always busy. She'd learned to take care of herself from a young age. You have me now, he blurted out, and immediately regretted it. It sounded too intimate. They were just in a contract. Sophia's eyes opened again. She just looked at him, her gaze unreadable. Just as the silence became awkward, she started coughing again, this time more violently, her whole body curling in on itself. Ethan quickly patted her back. Do you want some honey water? She nodded. When the coughing subsided, she whispered, When I was little, my mom used to take care of me like this. Her voice was so soft, it was almost a whisper to herself. Ethan didn't know what to say, so he just held her hot hand. She was a painter, Sophia continued, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. So gentle. She never got mad at me, not even when I got paint all over everything. Ethan was surprised to see a rare, faint smile on her lips. What happened to her? He asked tentatively. Car accident, she answered flatly, the smile vanishing. I was 10. My dad was in the middle of a big business deal. He didn't even stay for the whole funeral. Ethan's chest tightened. He couldn't imagine a 10-year-old girl dealing with her mother's death alone. That's why you don't believe in love, he said softly. Love is too fragile, Sophia said, her voice returning to its usual cool tone. Contracts are more reliable. Black and white, clear rights and responsibilities. Ethan wanted to argue, but she had already closed her eyes, clearly done with the conversation. He got up to make the honey water. When he came back, she was asleep, her breathing more even than before. He gently placed the cup on the nightstand, debating whether he should leave. Looking at her still flushed face, he decided to stay a while longer. The sky outside began to lighten. Ethan had dozed off in the chair. He was having a strange dream where he and Sophia were really getting married in a sunlit garden. She was in a white dress, and her smile was so real. Ethan! He woke with a start to find Sophia half sitting up in bed, anxiously shaking his shoulder. What time is it? She asked, her voice still hoarse but more alert. Ethan checked his phone. 9:20 in the morning. What's wrong? My competition, she said, struggling to get out of bed. The final submission deadline for the National Game Design Competition is noon today. You're in this state and you're still trying to compete. Ethan pushed her gently back down. I have to, she said, pushing his hand away. This competition is tied to my USC scholarship. She swayed as she stood up, nearly falling over from dizziness. Ethan caught her. Tell me what needs to be done. I'll help you. Sophia looked up at him, her eyes filled with doubt. I'm a programmer too, you know, he said with a wry smile. Maybe not on the level of the great Ice Queen, but I manage. Sophia bit her lip, weighing her options before finally nodding. My studio. There's a folder on the desktop named Dreamland. That's my submission. But there's an interaction bug I haven't been able to solve. The same kind I helped you with the other night? Similar, but more complex, she said, grabbing his arm. Ethan, this competition is really important to me. Her fingers tightened on his sleeve, her knuckles white. He had never seen her so openly emotional. Leave it to me, he promised. You get some rest. I'll take a look. On Sophia's desk, one of the monitors was still on, its screensaver a dreamlike scene. Ethan jiggled the mouse, and a folder named Dreamland appeared in the center of the screen. He opened it. It was a beautifully designed VR game project. The main character was a small fairy exploring a magical forest. The graphics were breathtaking. Every leaf swayed in the wind, and sunlight dappled through the canopy. But just as Sophia had said, there was a major bug in the character-environment interaction. When the fairy touched certain plants, the game would lag or even crash. Ethan examined the code and found the problem in the physics engine's collision detection. The algorithm Sophia had used was too complex, consuming too many resources during real-time rendering. This can be optimized, he muttered, opening the editor and starting to rewrite sections of the code. Time ticked by. Ethan was so engrossed in his work that he didn't even notice when Sophia came to stand behind him. You should be in bed, he said without turning around. My fever broke, she said, her voice still raspy but better than before. She leaned in to look at the screen, a faint medicinal scent clinging to her. How's it going? Found the problem, he said, pointing to a block of code. Your collision detection was too resource-intensive. I switched it to a layer detection method. Same result, much higher efficiency. Sophia's eyes lit up. Why didn't I think of that? Because you were delirious with fever, he said with a smile. Give me another 2 hours, and I should have it licked. Sophia nodded and pulled up a chair to sit next to him. Ethan had expected her to go back to bed, but she sat there quietly, watching him code, occasionally pointing out small details. They worked side by side, their collaboration so seamless it was as if they'd been partners for years. Ethan discovered that Sophia's understanding of game design, especially user experience, was far deeper than he'd imagined. Her instincts were incredibly sharp. Try it now. At 11:30, Ethan finished the last of the changes and hit the run button. The game launched smoothly. The little fairy zipped through the forest, interacting with plants of all kinds without a single stutter. Sophia played through a level herself, a satisfied smile spreading across her face. Perfect, she said softly, even better than I hoped. Ethan watched her rare smile, a strange warmth spreading through his chest. The Sophia of this moment was a different person from the cold campus legend. You should submit it. You've only got 20 minutes left, he reminded her. Sophia quickly packaged the files and uploaded them to the competition's website. The moment she clicked submit, she let out a long sigh and slumped back in her chair. Thank you, Ethan, she said, her eyes sparkling. I never would have made it without you. Don't mention it, he said, stretching, but you owe me a big dinner. I haven't even had breakfast. Sophia laughed. Anything you want. She glanced at the clock. But it'll have to wait until tomorrow. Right now, all I want to do is sleep. Her face was still pale, but she was in much better spirits. Ethan poured her a glass of water, watched her take her medicine, and insisted on walking her back to her bed. I'm not a child. I know, Sophia said with a sigh, but she let him tuck her in anyway. Patients need to act like patients, Ethan said, smoothing her blanket. Get some sleep. I'm going to buy some groceries to make you soup for dinner. Sophia looked at him in surprise. You can cook. A poor kid learns early, he said with a smile. My mom's a teacher. She often worked late. I've been cooking for myself since middle school. Sophia's expression softened. Your mom must be very proud of you. Ethan shrugged. She just wanted to find a stable job, not end up like my dad. He stopped abruptly. Like your dad? Sophia asked softly. Alcoholic, abusive, died in a drunk driving accident he caused. Ethan said, his voice flat, as if he were talking about someone else. I was 12. Sophia's eyes widened. She reached out and gently placed her hand on his wrist. So we're both pathetic kids with no parents? Ethan tried to lighten the heavy mood with a joke. Sophia didn't smile. I was going to say, we both understand what it's like to be alone. Their eyes met, and a silent understanding passed between them. For the first time, Ethan felt like someone truly understood him. Get some sleep, he said softly, patting her hand. I'll go get the groceries. Outside the apartment, the early summer sun felt warm on his face. Ethan took a deep breath, but the strange fluttering in his chest wouldn't go away. He thought about the articles about him on her studio wall, her rare moment of vulnerability when she was sick, the easy way they had worked together. This was all too dangerous. In 3 months, they were supposed to go their separate ways. He couldn't let himself get attached, and yet, seeing that she had been following his career, he felt an undeniable joy. She had noticed him long before they ever got married. The farmer's market was bustling. Ethan bought some vegetables, lean pork, and ginger to make a simple soup. He passed a fruit stand and picked up a few oranges. He'd heard vitamin C was good for a cold. When he got back, the apartment was quiet. Sophia must have fallen asleep again. He tiptoed into the kitchen and started preparing dinner. Rinsing rice, chopping vegetables, simmering the soup. The familiar motions reminded him of his mother. Whenever he was sick as a kid, she would make a pot of soup just like this, saying it was better than any medicine. His mom was still a busy teacher back in his hometown. He hadn't seen her in 6 months. The aroma of the soup gradually filled the apartment. As Ethan was stirring the pot, he heard a sound behind him. He turned to see Sophia leaning against the kitchen doorway, wearing a pair of oversized sweatpants and a t-shirt, her hair casually tied back. She looked much better than she had that morning. Smells good, she said, her voice still a little hoarse. Why are you up? He chided. You need to rest. The smell woke me up. I'm hungry, she said, walking over and peering into the pot. Looks delicious. Want a taste? He scooped up a small spoonful, blew on it, and held it to her lips. She hesitated for a second before leaning in and taking a sip. Her eyes immediately lit up. It's amazing. Her childlike reaction made him laugh. Then you should have a big bowl. They sat at the dining table, quietly eating the soup. Sophia ate elegantly, but quickly. Her bowl was empty in no time. More, he asked. She nodded, pushing her empty bowl toward him. He gave her another half bowl and peeled an orange for her. Do you take care of people like this often? She asked suddenly. He shook his head. You're the first. She seemed pleased with that answer, a small smile playing on her lips. Then I'm honored. After dinner, Ethan insisted on doing the dishes while Sophia sat on the couch and watched TV, a rare sight. She was usually either working or reading. What are you watching? He asked, drying his hands as he walked into the living room. Just flipping through, she said, clicking the remote. Have you ever played Maze of Illusions? He sat down next to her. Of course. Best indie game of last year. What? I'm analyzing its interaction design, she said, pointing at the gameplay footage on the screen. Its physics engine is really unique. They fell back into a technical discussion. Ethan found that talking with Sophia was fascinating. Her insights were sharp, and she always noticed details he'd missed. Before they knew it, it was late. Time for bed, he said, checking the clock. You're still not fully recovered. For once, she didn't argue, obediently turning off the TV. Ethan watched her go to her room before getting ready for bed himself. Lying in the dark, he replayed the day's events. It felt like a dream. He had seen a side of Sophia no one else had. Vulnerable, gentle, even a little childish. And the fact that she had been following his career for years made his heart beat faster. His phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Forgot to tell you. The awards ceremony for the game design competition is next week. You should come with me. Ethan stared at the message for a long time before slowly typing back. Okay. Good night, she replied instantly, adding a small moon emoji. Ethan looked at the little moon, a warmth spreading through his chest. He never thought this ridiculous contract marriage would turn into this, and he certainly never expected that he would start looking forward to every day he spent with her. On the day of the National Collegiate Game Design Awards, Ethan stood in front of his closet, changing his shirt for the 3rd time. He finally settled on a light blue Oxford, paired with dark slacks, dressy, but not stuffy. Are you ready yet? Sophia's voice came from the living room. We're going to be late. Coming. Ethan ran a hand through his hair one last time and walked out. Sophia was waiting by the door in a simple navy blue dress that made her skin look like porcelain. She had on light makeup, her lashes long, her lips a natural pink. A pair of small pearl earrings were her only jewelry. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. What is it? Sophia noticed him staring. Nothing, Ethan said, looking away quickly. It's just, you look really nice. Sophia's eyelashes fluttered, and a small smile touched her lips. Thanks. You look very. Her eyes scanned him from head to toe. Clean. Ethan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's a unique compliment. The ceremony was at the Grand Theater downtown. By the time their Uber dropped them off, the entrance was already swarming with contestants and guests. As Ethan got out of the car, he felt Sophia's hand slip into the crook of his arm. "It's crowded," she said simply, but the tips of her ears were pink. Ethan nodded, matching his steps to hers. He could feel the eyes on them, surprised, curious, even a little jealous. Sophia was the campus beauty. She was a magnet for attention wherever she went. "Sophia." A guy in glasses ran up to them excitedly. "It's really you. I'm Ryan from Estate Tech Game Design Club. I'm a huge fan of your work." Sophia gave him a polite nod. "Thank you. And this is—" Ryan's gaze shifted to Ethan, and recognition dawned. "Oh, you're the one who her husband," Ethan said, extending his hand, feeling a strange sense of pride. The guy's eyes went wide. He shook Ethan's hand awkwardly. "An honor. The subreddit is buzzing about you two." "We should get to our seats," Sophia cut him off, pulling Ethan away. "What was the rush?" Ethan asked in a low voice. She sighed. "I don't want to listen to the gossip." They found their seats in the third row, center stage. The view was perfect. Ethan noticed a few familiar names on the seat plaques in the front row, big shots in the game design industry. "The head of the judging committee is the CTO of Starlight Interactive," Sophia whispered. "The man with the glasses on the left is Professor Mark Wilson from USC. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "The school you applied to?" Sophia nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "If I win first place, the scholarship is practically guaranteed." The host kicked off the ceremony. After a few speeches from the judges, the awards began. Honorable mentions, creative awards, technical achievement. Ethan could feel Sophia getting more and more tense, her fingers twisting in her lap. "And now for the first place prize," the host said, tearing open the envelope with dramatic flair. "The winning creation is Dreamland by Sophia Hayes from Northwestern University." The theater erupted in applause. Sophia gasped, grabbing Ethan's hand, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Go on," Ethan urged her gently. "That's you." Sophia stood and made her way to the stage. In the spotlight, she was poised and graceful, showing no trace of her earlier nervousness. Ethan watched her accept the award, a swell of pride in his chest. "Dreamland is an incredibly innovative VR adventure game," the head judge commented. "Not only are the visuals professional grade, but the interaction design is groundbreaking. The optimization of its physics engine, in particular, solved a common lag issue in similar products." Ethan smiled to himself. That was the part he had helped with. During her acceptance speech, Sophia's voice was clear and steady. "Thank you to the committee for this honor. This project is the culmination of all my passion for game design. I especially want to thank—" She paused, her eyes finding Ethan in the audience. "My husband, Ethan Miller, who provided crucial technical support at a critical moment." A murmur went through the crowd. Ethan was stunned. He never expected her to thank him publicly. A spotlight swung over and hit him. He instinctively shielded his eyes as whispers broke out around him. "So, it's true. They're really married? Who's Ethan Miller? Never heard of him." After the ceremony, a crowd swarmed Sophia to congratulate her. Ethan tactfully stepped aside, not wanting to steal her thunder. He noticed the USC professor, Mark Wilson, talking animatedly with her. "Ethan," a voice said behind him. He turned to see a man in a sharp suit. His face was friendly, but his eyes were sharp as a hawk's. "I'm Chris Chun, CTO of Starlight Interactive," the man said, extending his hand. "I heard Ms. Hayes mention your contribution. Could you tell me more about what you did?" Ethan briefly explained his work on the physics engine optimization. Chris Chun's eyes lit up. He handed Ethan a business card. "Are you interested in an internship? We're looking for problem solvers like you." Ethan took the card, his heart pounding. "Thank you, I'll definitely consider it," he said, trying to stay calm. "Don't take too long," Chris said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Opportunities like this don't wait." Just then, Sophia broke away from the crowd and walked over, her cheeks flushed with excitement, the trophy clutched in her hand. "Mr. Chun," she greeted him politely. "Congratulations, Miss Hayes," he said with a smile. "I was just offering your husband an internship at our company." Sophia's eyes sparkled. "That's wonderful. I'll let you two celebrate," Chris said, waving goodbye. Sophia turned to Ethan, a brilliant smile on her face. "We did it." In the bright sunlight, her eyes looked like they were filled with stars. Ethan couldn't help but smile back. "You did it. I just helped a little." "No," she said seriously. "Without you, I wouldn't have even made the deadline. Half of this trophy is yours." A warmth spread through Ethan's chest. He was about to say something when a cold voice cut in. "Sophia." Her smile froze. Ethan turned to see a tall, middle-aged man standing nearby, flanked by two men who looked like bodyguards. The man was dressed in an expensive-looking custom suit, his face stern, his eyes sharp, a spitting image of an older Sophia. "Dad." Sophia's voice was tense. "What are you doing here?" "Harrison Hayes." Ethan recognized him immediately. He'd only met the man once, but his powerful presence was unforgettable. "I heard my daughter won an award, so I came to see," Harrison said, his gaze sweeping over Ethan like a cold blade. "I didn't expect you to bring him." The air around them seemed to freeze. Ethan straightened his back, meeting the scrutinizing gaze head-on. "Hello, Mr. Hayes." "Don't call me that," Harrison said coldly. "We're not that familiar." "Dad." Sophia frowned. "This is a public place." Harrison grunted, then turned to his daughter. "Let's go. The car is waiting. The Van Cess are already at the restaurant." "I have plans with Ethan," Sophia said, not moving. "Maybe some other time." "Some other time?" Harrison's voice rose. "Cameron flew all the way back from Hong Kong to see you. And you're telling me some other time?" People were starting to stare. Ethan felt Sophia's fingers secretly clutch his sleeve, trembling slightly. "Mr. Hayes," Ethan stepped forward. "Today is a big day for Sophia. We should respect her wishes." "We?" Harrison sneered. "Who do you think you are to say we to me?" He turned back to Sophia, his voice low but more menacing. "Sophia, don't force me to make a scene here." Sophia's face turned pale. Ethan could see the struggle in her eyes. Finally, she took a deep breath. "Dad, you go ahead. I'll come home tonight. We can talk then." "Bring the divorce papers when you come," Harrison snapped, then turned and strode away, the crowd parting for him as whispers followed in his wake. Ethan felt a wave of dizziness. Harrison's words hit him like a physical blow. "Don't listen to him," Sophia said, taking Ethan's hand. "Let's go." They hurried away from the theater and hailed a cab. In the car, Sophia stared out the window, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Are you going home tonight?" Ethan asked, breaking the silence. She nodded. "Some things need to be cleared up. The divorce." "I'm not getting a divorce," she said, turning to look at him, her gaze firm. "At least not now." Ethan didn't know what to say. On one hand, he understood the pressure she was under. On the other, their marriage was just a deal. What right did he have to stop her from choosing a better life? "The Starlight offer. Are you going to take it?" she asked, changing the subject. I haven't decided," he answered honestly. "It's a great opportunity, but what? But you'll be leaving for the U.S. in 3 months." Ethan swallowed the words. "But the grad school results aren't out yet. I want to wait and see." Sophia nodded thoughtfully and didn't press further. Back at the apartment, Sophia went straight to her studio, saying she had work to do. Ethan sat on the living room couch, staring at the Starlight Interactive business card. His phone buzzed. "A text from Art, dude. The grad school acceptance list is out. Guess what? You didn't make it." Ethan's heart sank. He immediately logged onto the university website. Sure enough, his name was nowhere on the list. Several students with lower GPAs had gotten in. "What happened?" he called Mark to ask. "No idea, man. Everyone's talking about it," Mark whispered. "I heard from a grad student in Professor Davies' lab that someone filed a complaint against you for academic dishonesty. They couldn't prove anything, but the committee decided to play it safe." Ethan hung up, a fire of rage burning in his chest. Academic dishonesty? He meticulously cited every source he ever used. He knew exactly who was behind this. Jessica, or Cameron, or both of them together. The studio door opened, and Sophia walked out, her face grim. "Ethan, we have a problem." "The grad school thing?" "You heard. It's more than that." She handed him her phone. "Look at this email." On the screen was an anonymous email with a short, chilling message. "Miss Hayes, proof of your husband Ethan Miller's affair with his ex-girlfriend Jessica Clark has been sent to the USC admissions office and your father's private email. We suggest you reconsider this marriage." Attached were several photos of him and Jessica talking on campus, from the day he'd overheard her plotting with Cameron. The photos were taken from a misleading angle, making it look like they were having an intimate conversation. "This is a setup." Ethan's hands were shaking. "They were plotting against us. I was eavesdropping." "I believe you," Sophia said calmly. "But that's not the problem. USC has already sent me an inquiry. They take the personal character of their applicants very seriously." Ethan felt like he'd been struck by lightning. He finally understood the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about his grad school application. It could destroy Sophia's dream of studying abroad. "I'll clear this up right now," he said, grabbing his phone. "I can find witnesses." "It's no use," Sophia said, shaking her head. "These pictures are enough to create doubt. Academia hates this kind of messy situation. Ethan slumped onto the couch, feeling utterly powerless. I'm sorry. I got you into this. It's not your fault, she said, sitting next to him. We underestimated Cameron's ruthlessness. What do we do now? Sophia thought for a moment. First, I'm going home to see my dad. Some things have to be said to his face. She stood up. Don't worry, I'll handle it. There was that phrase again. A wave of frustration washed over Ethan. You'll always handle it. What about me? Am I just supposed to sit here and wait? Sophia froze, surprised by his outburst. This is my future, my reputation. Ethan stood up, his voice trembling with suppressed anger. I have a right to be part of the solution. Sophia looked at him, her expression unreadable. What do you want to do? He was at a loss for words. He didn't have a plan. Ethan, Sophia said softly, sometimes the best move is to do nothing. I'll prove the value of this marriage to my father. In the meantime, you need to keep a low profile. Don't give Cameron any more ammunition. Ethan knew she was right, but his pride rebelled. So you're just going to go back and grovel to your dad? It's not groveling, it's negotiating, she said, picking up her purse. Trust me just this once, okay? The plea in her eyes was impossible to refuse. He finally nodded. Be careful. After Sophia left, the apartment felt suffocatingly quiet. Ethan paced restlessly, then opened his laptop to check his email. A formal internship offer from Chris Chun at Starlight Interactive was waiting for him, the salary far more generous than he'd expected. It should have been a moment of celebration, but it only made him more anxious. Grad school was a bust. Sophia's dream was in jeopardy. Her father was demanding a divorce. Everything was falling apart. His phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. He hesitated before answering. Hello. Ethan Miller. A man's voice with a slight accent asked. This is Professor Mark Wilson from USC. We met at the awards ceremony today. Ethan sat up straight. Professor Wilson, hello. I wanted to hear your side of the story regarding that anonymous email, the professor said calmly. Sophia is one of the most talented students I've encountered. I would hate for her future to be affected by unverified accusations. Ethan took a deep breath and explained everything, including Jessica and Cameron's plot. Interesting, Wilson said after listening. You know, Sophia mentioned you in her application. She mentioned me? She referred to you as her most important source of inspiration and her primary technical consultant. She even included links to some of your projects. Wilson chuckled. I took a look at your labyrinth of light. It's quite brilliant. Why didn't you apply to USC yourself? Ethan was stunned. Sophia had never told him any of this. Family reasons, he mumbled. Understand, Wilson said, not pressing. Listen, I will speak to the admissions committee about this. But what's more important is the attitude of Sophia's father. For what I hear, he's a very influential man. Ethan's heart sank. Yes, Professor. Good luck to you both, Wilson said before hanging up. After putting down the phone, Ethan walked to the door of Sophia's studio. It was unlocked. He pushed it open gently, his eyes drawn to the wall of clippings about him. Now he understood. She hadn't been collecting them just to get ideas. She genuinely admired his work. The computer screen was still on, the screensaver a shot from Dreamland. On impulse, he touched the mouse. The screen lit up, revealing her open email client. He knew he shouldn't snoop, but an email with the subject line, internship recommendation for Ethan Miller caught his eye. He clicked on it. It was a letter from Sophia to a vice president at Starlight Interactive, dated 2 weeks before they had gotten married. Dear Uncle Robert, I'm writing to you today to recommend an exceptionally talented game designer, Ethan Miller, a student in the CS department at Northwestern. His innovations in physics engines and light rendering are truly impressive. Ethan read the whole letter, a tightness in his chest. The Starlight offer wasn't a coincidence. Sophia had arranged it all. But why had she never mentioned it? Outside, the sky had grown dark. Ethan checked the time. Sophia had been gone for 3 hours, and he hadn't heard from her. He tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Just as he was debating whether to go to the Hayes residence, the doorbell rang. He ran to the door, only to find a driver he didn't recognize. Mr. Miller, the driver asked respectfully. Miss Hayes sent me to pick you up. Where is she? Waiting in the car. Ethan followed the driver downstairs. The familiar black Mercedes was parked at the curb. The back window was rolled down slightly, revealing Sophia's pale face. Get in, she said curtly. In the car, Sophia was silent, her hands clenched in her lap. Ethan noticed her eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying. What happened? He asked softly. She shook her head. We'll talk at home. Back at the apartment, she went straight into the bathroom. The sound of the shower ran for a long time. When she came out, She was in sweatpants, her hair wet and hanging over her shoulders. "My father cut me off," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "All my bank accounts are frozen. The rent for the studio, my USC tuition, even the maintenance fees for this apartment. He stopped paying for all of it." Ethan drew a sharp breath. "Because of me? Because of you? Because I'm fighting back, because I refuse to live the life he planned for me," she said with a bitter smile. "He's given me 1 week. Either I divorce you, go to Harvard for my MBA, and marry Cameron Vance, or I'm on my own." "That's insane." Ethan shot to his feet. "I'm going to talk to him." "Sit down," she commanded. "Getting emotional won't solve anything." He reluctantly sat. "So what do we do?" "First," she took a deep breath, "I need to find out if the USC scholarship is still on the table. If the anonymous email did too much damage, I might have to defer." "Professor Wilson just called me," Ethan said quickly. "He believes us. He's going to talk to the admissions committee." Sophia's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yeah. And he also said you recommended my work in your application." The tips of Sophia's ears turned pink. "I was just stating a fact." Ethan couldn't help but ask, "Why did you help me?" "Contacting Starlight before we even got married?" Sophia was silent for a long time. "Because I admire your talent," she said finally, her voice soft. "This industry is full of people who play by the rules. But you—" She looked up, meeting his eyes. "You're different." Their gazes locked, and an invisible current seemed to flow between them. Ethan felt a sudden impulse to tell her that he couldn't imagine life without her, to ask her not to go to. Second, Sophia looked away, her voice returning to its cool, analytical tone. "We need to solve our financial problem. I've already lined up a few freelance projects. It should be enough to cover basic living expenses and the studio rent. Your Starlight internship will help, too." Ethan noticed a stack of papers on the table. The top one was a contract from a well-known game company. "When did you get these projects?" "On the way home," she said dismissively. "My network is still good for something." Ethan realized then that Sophia was far stronger and more capable than he'd ever imagined. And finally, her voice softened. "About our agreement." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "Yeah. If you want to back out now, I completely understand," she said, looking him in the eye. "This has gone far beyond our original deal. You have no obligation to go through this with me." Without a second's hesitation, he shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." "Why?" she asked softly. "Because of the prenup?" "Because—" Ethan scrambled for a plausible reason. "Because we're friends. And this whole mess started because of me." A flicker of disappointment crossed her face, but she quickly hid it. "All right, then we stick to the plan. We get through this week and wait for news from Professor Wilson." She stood up, then swayed slightly. Ethan quickly steadied her. "Are you okay?" "Just a little tired," she said with a weak smile. "I'm going to bed. Good night." Watching her close her bedroom door, Ethan sat on the couch for a long time. He thought about what Professor Wilson had said, about the Starlight offer, about the clippings on her wall. Suddenly, an idea struck him. If Sophia had to go to the U.S., why couldn't he apply to? Once the thought took root, it wouldn't let go. He opened his laptop and checked the admission requirements for USC. The deadline had passed, but with a professor's recommendation. He glanced at the closed door of Sophia's studio and made a decision. Whatever happened, he wouldn't let her face it alone anymore. At 4 a.m, Ethan was woken by a frantic knocking on his door. He stumbled out of bed and opened it to find Sophia standing there, her face as white as a sheet, her phone clutched in her hand. "What is it?" he asked, instantly awake. "What's wrong?" She didn't speak, just handed him the phone. It was an email from Jessica with the subject line, "The Real Ethan Miller." Attached were several photos. Ethan and Jessica sitting across from each other at a restaurant, Jessica's hand on his face, the two of them walking side by side on campus, looking close. The last one was taken outside his dorm, with Jessica on her tiptoes as if about to kiss him. "This isn't real," he blurted out. "These photos are fake." "Are they?" Sophia's voice was ice. "So you weren't having dinner with her at the Foundry last night? Is that fake too?" Ethan's blood ran cold. He had been at the Foundry last night, but it was to meet Chris Chun from Starlight to discuss the internship. How could Jessica? "I can explain," he said urgently. "I was meeting with Mr. Chun. Jessica showed up out of nowhere. I left right after." "Enough," Sophia cut him off. "I don't care anymore." She walked into the living room, pulled a document from a drawer, and threw it on the coffee table. "The divorce papers. I've already signed." Ethan felt like he'd been struck by lightning. The papers on the table were blindingly white. Sophia's neat signature was at the bottom, the ink still fresh. "Why?" His voice was a strangled whisper. "Because of these fake photos?" "Not just that," she said, her voice terrifyingly calm. "My father was right. We're from two different worlds. This farce needs to end." "A farce?" The words were a punch to the gut. Our marriage is just a farce to you? She didn't answer, turning to walk back to her room. He grabbed her wrist. Sophia, look at me. She finally turned, her eyes red-rimmed, but dry, as if she'd cried all her tears out. Let go. I'm not signing, he said through gritted teeth. Not until you let me explain. There's no point, she said, wrenching her arm free. I've already told my father I'll be formally engaged to Cameron next week. The words were a knife in his heart. He staggered back. You? What? USC rescinded their offer, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Without the scholarship, I can't afford the tuition. The Vance family has offered to pay for it, on the condition that you marry him? Ethan roared. Sophia, are you insane? You know what kind of man he is. I know, she said, a broken smile on her face. But at least he's not with me for my money. That last line shattered him. He dropped his hand, watching helplessly as she walked back into her room and softly closed the door. The quiet click sounded like the end of the world. Daylight broke, and Ethan was still on the couch, staring at the divorce papers. Sophia's door remained closed. His phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Ethan, the finalist list for the International Game Design Competition is out. You made it. The final presentation is next Monday in San Francisco. Ethan stared at the message, numb. He'd submitted a physics-based puzzle game 6 months ago. Being a finalist meant international recognition, a chance at funding. It was his dream. But now none of it mattered. The bedroom door finally opened. Sophia emerged, pulling a small suitcase, her eyes swollen, but her expression resolute. She walked straight to the front door without looking at him. Where are you going? He asked, blocking her path. Home. My father sent a car, Sophia said flatly. We haven't finished talking. There's nothing to talk about, she said, stepping around him. My lawyer will contact you about finalizing the divorce. He grabbed her arm again. Sophia, please. At least let me prove the photos are fake. She finally looked at him, her eyes terrifyingly distant. Did you know that after my father froze my accounts, Cameron Vance transferred $500,000 to me? No questions asked? She gave a bitter smile. And you? You can't even tell me the truth. It's not the truth. The doorbell rang. Sophia pulled her arm free and opened the door. 2 men in black suits stood outside. Miss, the car is ready. Sophia nodded, then gave Ethan one last look. Good luck in the finals. And she was gone. Ethan stood alone in the empty apartment, her last words echoing in his ears. She knew he was a finalist. Did that mean she was still following his career? Or was it just a coincidence? His phone rang again. It was Christian. Ethan, what's your decision? The internship starts next week, just in time for your competition in San Francisco. Mr. Chen, an idea sparked in Ethan's mind. When we had dinner at the Foundry last week, did you happen to see a woman in a yellow dress? Yellow dress. Chris thought for a moment. Oh, I think there was a woman lingering by the entrance. The hostess had to ask her to move. Why? Ethan's heart pounded. Could you possibly write an email confirming that? It's very important. Sure, but it'll have to be on Monday. I'm out of town for a conference right now. After hanging up, Ethan opened his laptop and logged onto the campus subreddit. Just as he expected, Jessica had posted the photos with the title, The Truth About the Gold Digger, how Ethan Miller played 2 women at once. The thread was a dumpster fire of accusations and arguments. Ethan carefully examined the photos' metadata. The timestamp matched the night he met with Chris Chun, but the angle was cleverly chosen to crop Chris out completely. That bitch, he muttered. He was about to close the page when a new comment caught his eye. LOL. Nice fanfiction. I was at the Foundry at 7:30 last night, and Ethan was in a meeting with Chris Chun from Starlight Interactive. Try again. The commenter's username was GameLife, with a familiar anime avatar. Ethan clicked on the profile. It was a new account with no other activity. Who else could have been at the Foundry and known about his meeting? Ethan frowned, then had a thought. He opened his browser's developer tools and inspected the page's source code. Hidden in a comment tag was a single line of text. S. Code is poetry, bugs or songs. S. The name hit him like a physical blow. He knew that username. It belonged to a user on a game developer forum he'd been friends with for 2 years. She was a brilliant but mysterious coder. They had often discussed engine optimization and algorithms, even collaborated on a small project, but they had never met, never even exchanged real names. Could GameLife be S? Was she at the Foundry last night? The coincidence was too great. He immediately logged into the developer forum and sent a private message to S. Were you at the Foundry last night? No reply. He checked the time. It was already 10 m. Sophia was probably back at her father's mansion, locked away. Getting to her would be impossible. And more urgently, The international competition was in 5 days. He needed to prepare his presentation. But how could he focus now? His phone rang again. Professor Wilson. Ethan, I have good news and bad news. The good news is USC has decided to reinstate Sophia's offer. The bad news is she just emailed to decline it. What? Ethan gripped the phone. Why would she decline? She didn't give a reason, just cited personal family matters, Wilson said with a sigh. I suspect it has to do with her father. You know, Harrison Hayes is a very powerful man in the business world. Ethan's mind raced. Sophia declining the offer meant she had surrendered. She was accepting her father's arrangement with the Van Cess. And it all started with Jessica's fake photos. He had to prove they were fake. He had to see Sophia. But how could he get past the walls of the Hayes estate? A crazy idea began to form. At 3 p.m., Ethan stood in front of the Hayes Industries headquarters, a 30-story tower of glass and steel. Security in the lobby was tight. No one got in without an appointment. But he was prepared. I'm here for an interview, he told the receptionist, showing her an email on his phone. IT department intern. The receptionist checked her list. Ethan Miller? Yes, you're on the schedule. 16th floor, human resources. As the elevator ascended, Ethan's heart pounded. He had applied for the internship on a whim. Hayes Industries was indeed hiring, and he'd used his real name. It was a huge risk, but it was the only way he could get close to Harrison Hayes. The interview went surprisingly well. The tech lead was impressed with his resume and even hinted at an immediate offer. But when he was asked why he wanted to work for Hayes Industries, his answer raised a red flag. I heard the company is expanding into the gaming industry, and I want to be a part of that. The tech lead frowned. Who told you that? That project hasn't been publicly announced. Ethan knew he'd screwed up. Just as he was trying to backtrack, the conference room door opened. I told him. A cool voice filled the room. Harrison Hayes stood in the doorway, his face a mask. The interview is over, Mr. Lee. You can go. The tech lead shot up and left, giving Ethan a confused look on his way out. The room was silent, the air thick with tension. Interesting, Harrison said, sitting down across from Ethan. My daughter's ex-husband, interviewing at my company? I'm not here for a job, Ethan said, meeting his eyes. I want to see Sophia. That's not possible. The photos are fake. I can prove it. Harrison sneered. It doesn't matter if they're real or fake. What matters is that you can't give Sophia the life she needs. The life she needs is marrying some monster who drove his first wife to suicide. Harrison's eyes turned to ice. Watch your mouth. The Van Cess are old family friends. Cameron is a very capable young man. Capable of controlling people, you mean? Ethan said through gritted teeth. Sophia has a gift for game design. She should be pursuing her dream, not be a pawn in your business deal. A dream? Harrison said, as if it were a joke. Can you eat a dream? Do you have any idea what kind of life Sophia has had? A single one of her dresses costs more than your entire year's tuition. Can you give her that? Ethan clenched his fists. I can give her respect and freedom. Naive, Harrison said, standing up. This conversation is over. Security will show you out. Wait, Ethan stood up too. At least let me see her. If she tells me to my face that she chooses Cameron, I will sign the divorce papers and disappear forever. Harrison paused, seeming to consider it. Finally, he shook his head. There's no need. Sophia has already made her choice. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Sarah, please escort Mr. Miller out. 2 security guards appeared at the door. Ethan knew it was pointless to argue further. He turned to leave. As he reached the door, Harrison spoke again. I hear you're a finalist in the International Game Design Competition this Monday in San Francisco. Ethan turned in surprise. How did you know? I have my sources, Harrison said pointedly. Young man, instead of chasing the impossible, you should focus on your own future. Stepping out of the towering building and into the harsh sunlight, Ethan felt a crushing sense of defeat. Harrison was right. He couldn't give Sophia a life of luxury, but all Cameron could offer her was a gilded cage. His phone buzzed. It was Mark. Dude, did you finish your presentation deck for the finals? The professor wants to do a dry run. Ethan stared at the message and made a decision. He typed back, cancel my spot in the competition for me. Mark called him instantly. What are you talking about? This is an international competition. I have something more important to do, Ethan said. What could be more important than this? Saving my marriage. He hung up and immediately hailed a cab to Cameron Vance's company. The Vance global headquarters was just as imposing, but this time he had a different strategy. I'm a courier from Hayes Industries. I have an urgent document from Mr. Vance, he told the receptionist, holding up a prop folder. The receptionist looked at him suspiciously. Does Mr. Vance need to sign for it personally? Mr. Hayes' specific instructions. At the mention of Harrison Hayes, the receptionist immediately picked up the phone. 10 minutes later, Ethan was escorted to the top-floor office. Cameron Vance sat behind a massive desk, immaculate in his suit, a smug, victorious smile on his face. "Interesting," he said, looking Ethan up and down. "Sophia's ex-husband delivering a package? You had Jessica take those pictures," Ethan said, cutting to the chase. "You wanted to drive a wedge between me and Sophia." Cameron raised an eyebrow. "Do you have proof?" "I don't need proof," Ethan sneered. "I just came to tell you that Sophia will never love you, even if you buy her all the roses in the world." Cameron's expression darkened. "Do you know why I'm successful? Because I never let emotions get in the way." He stood up and walked around the desk. "And you, giving up an international competition for a woman. It's pathetic. At least I know what's more important than fame and money." "The noble poor man," Cameron mocked. "Too bad nobility doesn't pay the bills. Sophia is used to a certain lifestyle. Do you really think she can handle being an ordinary person?" Ethan didn't answer. He knew there was some truth to what Cameron was saying, but he had also seen her pulling all-nighters, eating instant noodles. She was more alive in those moments than he had ever seen her. "Let me see her," Ethan tried again. "If she tells me she chooses you, I will walk away." Cameron laughed as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. "And why would I do that?" "Because I love her," Ethan said calmly. The words seemed to stun Cameron for a second. Then he burst out laughing. "Love? Do you think this is a movie?" He walked back to his desk and pressed the intercom. "Security, please show this gentleman out." Ethan had failed again. That evening, he returned to the empty apartment. Most of Sophia's things were still there, but it felt lifeless. He numbly opened his laptop and checked his email. Professor Wilson had sent another message. "Ethan, I'm curious why you never applied to USC. Your work is more than qualified. Given the special circumstances, I can try to get you an extension on the application deadline." An idea sparked in Ethan's mind. He quickly replied, "Professor, if I were able to get a personal letter of recommendation from Sophia, would I have a chance at a scholarship?" The reply came quickly. "Absolutely. Her endorsement carries a lot of weight." But how could he get a letter from Sophia? She was under house arrest, not even answering her phone. As he was racking his brain, the doorbell rang. He opened it to find a delivery guy. "Package for Ethan Miller." He signed for it. Inside was a brand new, top-of-the-line gaming laptop. There was no note, just a single text file on the desktop named for the idiot. He opened it. It contained a single line. "See you at the finals. S. S." Ethan's heart hammered at his chest. S. Knew about the finals? But how did she know he had dropped out? Unless... A wild theory took hold. What if S. was Sophia? It was crazy, but it made a strange kind of sense. Sophia had the technical skills, and the timeline fit. S. was often online late at night, and so was Sophia. More importantly, many of the technical problems they had discussed were the exact issues Sophia had been facing with her own projects. Ethan immediately logged into the developer forum and looked at S post history. A post from 2 years ago caught his eye. Unity Engine light mapping issue. How to maintain realism while reducing resource consumption. This was the exact problem Sophia had been solving in Dreamland. And the solution S had proposed at the time was almost identical to the algorithm Sophia had ended up using. More and more evidence pointed to the same incredible conclusion. Sophia was S, the online friend he had admired for 2 years, his favorite coding partner. If this was true, then Sophia knew him far better than he had ever imagined. She had known him, admired him, maybe even... The doorbell rang again, pulling him from his thoughts. This time, it was a young woman he didn't recognize, stylishly dressed and in her early 20s. "Ethan," she asked with a smile. "I'm Sophia's cousin, Chloe." She lowered her voice. "She sent me with a message." Ethan quickly let her in. "How is she?" "Basically under house arrest. They took her phone and computer," Chloe said with an eye roll. "My uncle is dead set on her marrying Cameron." "What did she say?" Chloe pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "See for yourself." Ethan's hands trembled as he unfolded it. It was Sophia's familiar handwriting. "Go. What are the finals? I'll be waiting at the finish line." The simple sentence made his eyes burn. She knew. She knew he had given up the competition for her. And now, she was telling him not to. "Did she say anything else?" he asked softly. Chloe hesitated. She said, "If you really knew her, you would understand her choice." Those words were a key, unlocking something in his mind. Yes, if he truly knew Sophia, the Ice Queen who was also S. He would know what she valued most. Not luxury, not family honor, but the freedom to chase her dreams. And now, she was trading her own freedom for his. Tell her I'll go, Ethan said, clutching the note. But this isn't the finish line. I'll find her, no matter where she is. Chloe nodded and left. Ethan returned to his computer and sent one last email to Professor Wilson. Professor, I will compete in the finals and do my best. As for USC, I have a more important competition to win first. Then he opened the new laptop and began to prepare his presentation. This time, it wasn't just for himself. It was for the girl who believed in him, the girl who was sacrificing herself for him. The San Francisco Convention Center was buzzing. The International Game Design Competition finals were in full swing. Ethan stood backstage, tapping his leg nervously, his eyes fixed on the countdown on the big screen. 20 minutes until his presentation. Mr. Miller, please get ready, a staff member said. Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath. He had spent the last 3 days perfecting his demo. Even Professor Wilson had seen a rehearsal and said he had a strong chance of winning. But his mind was 1,000 miles away with Sophia. His phone vibrated. A text from Chloe. My cousin is meeting the Vance family tonight. The Foundry, 7 p.m. Ethan checked his watch, 4:15 p.m. If he left now, he could just make it. But if he missed the finals? Our next contestant, Ethan Miller, from the USA, the announcer's voice boomed. Ethan shot to his feet, grabbed his backpack, and sprinted for the exit. A staffer tried to stop him. Mr. Miller, it's your turn. Sorry, I have an emergency, he said, pushing past. Please disqualify me. Ignoring the shouts behind him, Ethan burst out of the convention center and jumped into a cab. The airport, the fastest flight out. The driver gave him a strange look. You sure, buddy? You'll miss the competition. I'm not going to a competition, Ethan said through gritted teeth. I'm going to get my wife back. The flight was delayed. By the time Ethan finally reached the Foundry, it was 7:40 p.m. The restaurant where they'd gotten drunk and married was lit up, a fleet of luxury cars parked out front, including Harrison Hayes' familiar black Mercedes. He tried to rush in, but was stopped by a security guard. Sir, private event tonight. I'm looking for someone. Sophia Hayes. She's in there. The guard eyed his wrinkled shirt and disheveled hair. And you are? Her husband. The two guards exchanged a look. One spoke into his walkie-talkie, then shook his head. Sorry, sir. Miss Hayes says she doesn't know you. The words were a physical blow. Sophia didn't know him? No, it had to be her father or Cameron. Let me in. He tried to force his way past, but the guards grabbed him. Sir, please don't make this difficult. Just then, a flash of lightning split the sky, followed by a deafening clap of thunder. A torrential downpour began. In the ensuing chaos, Ethan saw a familiar figure slip out a side door. Chloe. She caught his eye, then deliberately knocked over a large vase. Oh my gosh, she shrieked. The guard's attention was diverted. Ethan seized the opportunity, ducking around the side and slipping into the restaurant. Inside, a large round table was set in the center of the main dining room. Harrison Hayes, Cameron Vance, and several older people who looked like Vance's family were talking and laughing. Sophia sat next to Cameron, wearing a lavender silk dress, her hair pinned up, her makeup flawless. But her expression was as lifeless as a doll's. Ethan hid behind a decorative screen, his heart pounding. He had to get to her, but if he rushed out, they'd just throw him out again. Just then, the lights flickered and went out. The restaurant was plunged into darkness. What's going on? Harrison's annoyed voice echoed. A power outage from the storm, a waiter explained. The backup generator will kick in any second. In the brief confusion, Ethan moved through the darkness toward the main table. By the time the backup lights came on, he was standing right in front of Sophia. Cameron was the first to see him, his face contorting in anger. Sophia looked up, the numbness in her eyes replaced by pure shock. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. Security. Harrison slammed his hand on the table. Get this man out of here. Guards rushed forward, but Ethan grabbed Sophia's hand first. Come with me. She was frozen, her eyes darting between him and her father. Cameron sneered. Don't embarrass yourself, Miller. Sophia has made her choice. Has she? Ethan looked directly into her eyes. Then let her tell me herself. The room was silent. Everyone's eyes were on Sophia. Her hand trembled in his, but she didn't pull away. Sophia. Harrison's voice was like ice. Don't forget our agreement. The words seemed to snap her out of her trance. She pulled her hand back and stood up. Ethan, you shouldn't have come. Why not? Because you were waiting for me to win a competition? He asked with a bitter smile. I figured out. There is no S. That's your burner account, isn't it? Her eyes widened. How did you? For 2 years, we talked about code, admired each other's work, never knowing who the other was. His voice trembled with emotion. Until that night we got drunk and married. Enough, Harrison roared. Security, get him out. The guards swarmed him, dragging him toward the door. He didn't fight back, his eyes locked on Sophia. You told me to go to the finals, that you'd be waiting at the finish line. I'm here now. Are you really going to give up? A flicker of conflict crossed her face, but it was quickly gone. I didn't give up, she said quietly. I just faced reality. What reality? That you don't love Cameron Vance. Love? Cameron laughed mockingly. Do you think this is a fairy tale? They dragged him to the door. Rain lashed his face, mixing with what might have been tears. Just as they were about to throw him out, Sophia stood up. Wait. Everyone froze. She took a deep breath and turned to her father. Dad, I want to talk to Ethan alone. Harrison's face was a thundercloud. No. Just 5 minutes, she said, her voice soft but firm. If you don't agree, I'm leaving right now. Their gazes met in a silent battle of wills. Finally, Harrison grunted. 3 minutes. Talk here. Sophia walked over to Ethan. The guards released him. They stood in a corner of the restaurant, surrounded by hostile eyes. You shouldn't have come, she said in a low voice. That was an international competition. You had a chance. There are many chances in life, but there's only one you, he said, looking her in the eye. The photos are fake. I can prove it. Chris Chun is willing to testify that we were talking about work, and Jessica was just trying to cause trouble. I know, she whispered. He stared at her. You know, Chloe helped me check the restaurant's security footage, she said with a humorless smile. But that's not the issue. Even without the photos... No, he cut her off. That is the issue. You'd rather believe fake photos than trust me. You'd rather marry Cameron than give us a chance. What? She was silent for a long time. Because I'm scared, she finally said. Scared of what? Scared that none of this is real. Her voice was almost lost in the storm. Scared that you're only doing this out of a sense of obligation. He understood then. It wasn't that she didn't trust him. She didn't trust that she was worthy of being loved. Sophia, he said softly, that night we got married, was it really just because I was drunk? Her eyelashes fluttered. What do you mean? You know what I mean, he said, stepping closer. With your tolerance for alcohol, you could have easily shut down a drunk guy's stupid dare. But you didn't. What? The tips of her ears turned pink. Time's up. Harrison's voice boomed. The conversation is over. Sophia looked at her father, then back at Ethan, her eyes filled with a storm of emotions. Go home. Finish your competition. That's where you belong. Nowhere is where I belong if you're not there, he said with a sad smile. But I respect your choice. If this is what you really want. He took a deep breath. I wish you both happiness. He turned and walked out into the downpour without looking back. The rain soaked him to the bone, but the cold was nothing compared to the ache in his chest. He wandered aimlessly, somehow ending up back across the street from the foundry. The rain was coming down harder now, the restaurant's lights blurred and distant. He stood there, watching the door he had just been thrown out of, feeling the absurdity of it all. A flash of lightning illuminated a figure at the restaurant's entrance, Sophia. She had no umbrella. Her expensive dress was soaked through in seconds, her hair plastered to her face. She was looking around frantically, as if searching for someone. Ethan's heart stopped. He ran across the street. Sophia. She saw him, and her eyes lit up, then her expression hardened. What are you still doing here? He didn't have an answer. What about you? Why did you come out? I'm done, she said, wiping rain from her face. Done with my life being planned for me. Done with all their lies. She looked up at him, a defiant light in her eyes. But I didn't come out here for you. I did it for me. He nodded, a warmth spreading through his chest. I understand. What do you understand? She snapped, suddenly angry. You gave up the finals just to play the hero? Do you have any idea how important that competition was for you? Not as important as you. That's stupid. Her voice was barely audible over the thunder. Am I worth that? He didn't answer right away. In the rain, she looked a mess. Her dress was ruined. Her makeup was running. But in his eyes, she had never looked more real. Yes, he said softly. Because 2 years ago, at the campus talent show, I saw you sing for the first time, and I was hooked. She froze. What? Talent show? You sang a song by the Killers. You were wearing a white dress, he said, the memory clear as day. I wanted to talk to you then, but you were the campus beauty, and I was just some bro kid. Her eyes widened. You remember that? And then when I saw you at the game design club, I was ecstatic, he said with a self-deprecating smile. But you were so unapproachable, I never worked up the courage to say anything. The rain began to let up, but neither of them moved. A softness entered her eyes. So, that night at the bar, I was drunk because Jessica had just dumped me. I felt like a total failure, he said with a bitter smile. And then you, the untouchable ice queen, actually drank with me and agreed to that insane bet. Because I already knew who you were, she said softly. What? S is me, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. I've been following you on the developer forums for a long time. When I saw you at the club dinner that night, I recognized you instantly. The truth hit him like a lightning bolt. So the bet to get married. It was a bit of both, she said, turning her head away. I didn't need an excuse to get out of the arranged marriage, but the fact that it was you, it wasn't the worst-case scenario. Her words were like a ray of sunshine breaking through the storm clouds in his mind. He tentatively reached out and touched her fingers. And now, am I still not the worst-case scenario? She didn't pull her hand away, but she didn't look at him either. You gave up the finals. It was worth it. Stupid. Worth it. She finally turned to face him, her eyes shining with a complex light. Do you know why I wanted you to go to the competition? Because you wanted me to prove myself. Because I knew you would win, she said, her voice soft but clear. I believe in your talent more than I believe in my own. The words went straight to his heart. He thought of the clippings on her wall, of her secretly setting up his internship, of her recommending his work in her application. She had always been his biggest supporter, and he had never even known. We can start over, he said, gathering his courage. No contract, no deal. A real try. She was silent for so long he thought she would say no. Finally, she whispered, I have nowhere else to go. My dad will cut me off from everything. I might not even be able to graduate. Then we'll face it together, he said, squeezing her hand. I may not have much, but I can work. We won't starve. Tears welled in her eyes, invisible in the rain. Are you sure? I have a bad temper, I'm a neat freak, and when I work, I lose all track of time. I'm sure, he said with a smile, because I've seen the real you, the dark circles under your eyes after an all-nighter, the red nose when you have a cold, and the goofy smile on your face when you're feeding the campus cats. I do not have dark circles, she protested, but the corner of her mouth turned up. The rain had softened to a drizzle. He took a chance and gently pulled her closer. So, do we start over? She didn't answer. Instead, she stood on her toes and softly kissed his cheek. The simple gesture was more than enough. Ahem. A voice came from behind them. They jumped apart to see Chloe standing there, holding an umbrella, a mischievous grin on her face. "'Cause my uncle is losing his mind. He sent everyone out to look for you." Sophia's expression tensed. "My dad." "Don't worry, I told him you were in the restroom," Chloe said with a wink. "But you two should probably find a place to hide. This rain's not stopping anytime soon." Ethan looked around. "Back to our apartment?" "No way." Chloe shook her head. "My uncle knows that address. It'll be the first place he checks." "Then where?" Ethan frowned. Sophia suddenly smiled. "I know a place they'll never think of." 10 minutes later, the three of them were crammed into Ethan's tiny dorm room. Mark and Kevin stared, jaws on the floor, at the campus beauty and her cousin. "Ethan, what?" Mark stammered. "We just need a place to crash for the night," Ethan explained. "Can you guys help me out?" Of course." Kevin jumped up. "Mark and I can sleep in the room next door. You guys take this one." The two roommates hastily gathered their things. On his way out, Mark gave Ethan a conspiratorial thumbs up. Legend. After the door closed, Chloe burst out laughing. "Your roommates are hilarious." Sophia, however, was standing by the window, staring out at the rain. Ethan walked over and took her hand. "Having second thoughts?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "Just a little scared. I've never disobeyed my father before." He understood. Leaving her pant legs rolled up, without makeup, her hair still damp, she looked like a regular college student and more beautiful than he had ever seen her. "What are you looking at?" she asked, a little self-consciously. "You," he answered honestly. "The real you." The tips of her ears turned pink. She changed the subject. "Are you hungry?" "I don't think either of us had dinner." He realized then that he hadn't eaten all day. "All I have is instant ramen." "Ramen is perfect," she said to his surprise. "I like the beef flavor." They sat huddled around the small dorm desk, sharing a bowl of hot ramen. Outside, the rain pattered against the window. The room was dimly lit, but it felt strangely warm and safe. "So," Ethan broke the silence. S is really you." Sophia nodded, a smile on her lips. "Surprised? Why didn't you tell me?" "At first, it was just fun," she said, stirring her noodles. "And later, I was afraid that if you knew, it wouldn't be as real anymore." He understood. Online, People were often their most authentic selves, free from the constraints of their real-world identities. And now, are you still afraid? She looked up at him, a new determination in her eyes. Not anymore. Because even after knowing who we both are, we still chose to stay. The words were a key, unlocking the last of the doubt in his heart. Yes, no matter how many misunderstandings there had been, they were choosing to be honest, to face the future together. That was all that mattered. The rain softened, and the first light of dawn began to peek through the blinds. They sat side by side on the narrow dorm bed, their fingers intertwined, quietly waiting for the new day. Whatever challenges lay ahead, at least they weren't alone anymore. The morning sun streamed through the dorm room blinds. Ethan blinked, momentarily disoriented. Then he felt the weight on his shoulder. Sophia had fallen asleep, leaning against him, her dark hair spilling over his arm. The memories of last night came flooding back. The storm, the confrontation, the confession in the rain, and the feather-light kiss. He carefully shifted his numb arm, and Sophia stirred. She blinked, her long lashes casting shadows in the morning light. Her sleepy confusion cleared the moment she saw him. "Morning," she said, her voice husky. "Morning," he replied, his throat tight. "Sleep okay?" She sat up, rubbing her neck. "Better than I expected." She glanced around the tiny dorm room, a small smile playing on her lips. "Even if the accommodations are a bit lacking." Ethan chuckled. A downgrade for the campus queen. "Oh, shut up," she said, rolling her eyes, but she couldn't hide her smile. "So, what's the plan?" Ethan checked his phone. "First, we go to the apartment and grab our stuff before your dad sends his goons. And then, Ethan scratched his head. "Find a cheap short-term rental? My internship at Starlight starts next week, so I'll have some income." Sophia nodded. "I could take on freelance work. It'll be enough to cover rent and food." They both tacitly avoided the bigger issues. Her rejected USC offer, the graduation diploma her father would surely hold hostage, his own lost shot at the grad program. But strangely, Ethan didn't feel hopeless. He felt grounded. At least there were no more secrets. They heard footsteps and the jingle of keys outside. They instinctively moved apart just as the door opened. Mark poked his head in, saw them sitting fully clothed on the bed and visibly relaxed. "Ethan, Sophia, morning," he said, handing them 2 paper bags. "Breakfast." Ethan took the bags of warm dumplings and soy milk. "Thanks, man." "No problem." Mark scratched his head. The campus subreddit is exploding. About last night. Ethan frowned. Were they saying that Sophia ran out on her own engagement party? Mark said, glancing nervously at her. "Someone got a picture of you two in the rain." Kissing. Sophia finished calmly. Mark's face turned beet red. As something like that. Ethan pulled out his phone. The top posts on the subreddit were all about them. Breaking. Campus beauty Sophia Hayes bails on her own engagement party. Confirmed. Sophia Hayes and Ethan Miller kissing in the rain. Rags to riches? The full story of how Ethan Miller won over the Ice Queen. The most popular post had a blurry photo of them in front of the foundry. He was holding her hand. She was looking up at him. The quality was terrible, but the intimacy was undeniable. "Not a bad photo," Sophia commented, leaning over his shoulder. "It makes me look thin." Ethan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Is that really the most important thing right now?" "Why not?" she shrugged. "It was going to come out eventually." Her words warmed him. That was right. They didn't have to hide anymore. After breakfast, they slipped out of the dorm and took an Uber to the apartment. On the way, Ethan's phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello. Is this Mr. Ethan Miller?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Lisa from the International Game Design Competition Committee." Ethan's stomach dropped. "I'm very sorry about dropping out." "No, you misunderstand," Lisa interrupted. "Professor Mark Wilson explained your unique circumstances. While your absence from the finals disqualifies you from the prize, the committee was extremely interested in your submission, Labyrinth of Light." Ethan was stunned. "What do you mean?" "The CEO of Mythic Games saw your work and would like to discuss a potential partnership," Lisa said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Are you available for a video conference this afternoon?" Mythic Games? They were a major international studio. Ethan was speechless. He looked at Sophia, who raised her eyebrows in confusion. Yes, of course," he managed to say. "What time?" After he hung up, he was still in shock. "Mythic Games. They want to partner on my project." Sophia's eyes lit up. "I knew it. The physics engine in Labyrinth of Light is groundbreaking. Of course they'd be interested. But I dropped out of the competition." "Quality work speaks for itself," she said confidently. "Trust me, this is a turning point." Back at the apartment, they quickly packed the essentials: computers, documents, clothes. Sophia made sure to take all her original design files and hard drives from her studio. Just in case my dad sends people to clear out, she explained. Sure enough, less than half an hour after they left, Ethan got a call from the building management. Someone with a court order was in their apartment. Harrison moves fast, Ethan said with a grim smile. It's what he does, Sophia said, her expression hardening for a moment before she shook it off. Come on, let's find a place to live. They found a small, clean studio apartment near the university. The rent was manageable. The landlady was a kind old woman who, seeing the newlyweds, gave them a set of new bed sheets as a gift. As soon as they were settled, Ethan set up his computer for the afternoon meeting. Sophia contacted her freelance clients and secured 2 projects for game UI design. $5,000 an hour, with a deposit, she announced, satisfied. That's enough to keep us going for a while. Ethan watched her work, a sense of admiration welling up inside him. The girl who once lived in luxury was now willing to live in a tiny studio and hustle for freelance work, all to be with him. And she hadn't complained once. The video conference that afternoon went better than he could have dreamed. The CEO of Mythic Games, David Chun, was full of praise for Labyrinth of Light. We're willing to offer you $500,000 for the rights to the technology, David said. Or you could take an equity stake in our new project that uses it. Ethan hesitated, looking at Sophia. She scribbled a note and pushed it toward him. Take the equity. Better long term. He took the equity stake and also negotiated a remote senior engineer position with a salary 3 times what Starlight had offered. This is amazing. After the call ended, he picked Sophia up and spun her around. We don't have to worry about money. She laughed, pushing him away playfully. Don't celebrate just yet. We still have plenty of problems to solve. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Ethan started his remote work with Mythic, while also continuing his internship at Starlight. Sophia took on a mountain of freelance work. They lived like any other young couple, cooking in a cramped kitchen, playing rock, paper, scissors to see who would do the dishes, and watching movies in bed on the weekends. The only difference was the constant, low-level anxiety that Harrison Hayes might show up at any moment. One Friday night, a month later, Ethan came home from a late night at the office to find Sophia sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at a letter. What's wrong? He asked. She looked up, her eyes shining. USC sent me another offer. A full scholarship. His heart skipped a beat. That's great, isn't it? But I can't go, she said with a sad smile. Without a bachelor's degree, they'll eventually have to rescind it. He sat down next to her and took her hand. We'll figure something out. Professor Wilson. Ethan, she interrupted. I checked. My dad did contact the university. He has my diploma on hold. She took a deep breath. But I don't regret it. Her words hit him like a hammer. He knew how much she had worked for this, and she had given it all up for him. I'll find a way, he said firmly. There has to be a way. The next day, Ethan secretly contacted Professor Wilson and explained the situation. To his surprise, the professor seemed to have anticipated it. I figured as much, Wilson said over the video call. Sophia's portfolio is so exceptional that we've made a special allowance for her to enroll based on her existing credits and her body of work. As for the diploma, she can submit it later. Ethan couldn't believe it. Really? Of course, Wilson smiled. In the game industry, talent is more important than a piece of paper. By the way, how is your project with Labyrinth of Light coming along? After hanging up, Ethan couldn't wait to tell Sophia the good news. But then he received a text from an unknown number. Want to know why Sophia really chose you? Tonight, 8 p.m. The Foundry, private room 302. Jessica. Ethan stared at the message, a frown on his face. What was she up to now? But the question, why Sophia really chose you, piqued his curiosity. After some hesitation, he decided to go, but he took precautions. He turned on his phone's audio recorder, shared his location with Mark, and arrived early to scout the place. Room 302. The same room where it all began. He pushed the door open. Jessica was already there, wearing a white dress, her makeup perfect, though it couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. You came, she said with a brittle smile. Sit. He remained standing by the door. Just say what you have to say. What's the rush? She poured him a cup of tea. Afraid Sophia will find out you're here. We don't have secrets, he said coldly. Really? Jessica raised an eyebrow. Did she tell you why she tried to kill herself when she was 14? The words were a punch to the gut. What? I thought not, she said, a triumphant smile on her face. When Sophia was 14, she overheard her father and Cameron Vance's father talking. The two families had arranged their marriage years ago, even signed a business contract. She couldn't handle being controlled like that, so she cut her wrists. Luckily, the housekeeper found her. A wave of nausea washed over Ethan. He couldn't imagine the despair Sophia must have felt. After that, she pretended to go along with it, but she was always fighting back, Jessica continued. Including getting involved with you, someone her father would never approve of. What are you trying to say? Ethan clenched his fists. I'm saying, she looked him straight in the eye, that Sophia might have chosen you just to rebel against her father. Do you really understand her motives? Ethan was silent for a moment, then he laughed. Thank you for telling me this. Jessica stared at him, confused. What? Now I'm more certain than ever that her feelings for me are real, he said calmly. If she was just rebelling, she could have kept up the act after the engagement. Why would she risk everything, give up her entire life, to run away and be poor with me? Jessica's face fell. You're so naive. No, you're just not willing to let go, he said, turning to leave. Jessica, move on. We both deserve better. When he got home, Sophia was in the kitchen, making pasta. You're back, she said without turning around. Dinner's almost ready. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, burying his face in her hair. She tensed for a second, then relaxed into his embrace. What's wrong? I saw Jessica today, he said. He felt her body go rigid, and quickly added, she told me some things. About when you were 14. Sophia turned off the stove and slowly turned to face him, her eyes wary. How does she know about that? It doesn't matter, he said, cupping her face in his hands. What matters is that I understand now why you fought so hard against that marriage. A flicker of vulnerability crossed her face before she composed herself. It's in the past, but it affects the present, he said, taking her hand. Professor Wilson said you can enroll at USC based on your existing work. You can submit your diploma later. Her eyes widened. Really? Yes, he nodded. And Mythic Games wants to transfer me to their U.S. office. It's in Los Angeles, not far from USC. Tears welled in her eyes. That's too much of a coincidence. It's not a coincidence, he said softly. I requested the transfer. I want to go to the U.S. with you if you'll have me. A tear finally escaped and rolled down her cheek. You idiot. They held each other, no more words needed. In that moment, all the misunderstandings, all the secrets, all the doubt, melted away, leaving only the purest of feelings. 3 months later, Los Angeles. Ethan stood on the main stage at the Mythic Games press conference, facing hundreds of audience members and reporters, introducing his new game, Accidental Marriage, a romance simulation game inspired by a story with Sophia. What makes this game unique is its emotion engine, he explained. Every choice the player makes affects the character's relationship. There's no fixed storyline, just like real-life relationships, which are full of uncertainty. After the demo, the hall erupted in applause. The host invited a special guest to the stage. When Sophia walked out, a gasp went through the crowd. The former Ice Queen was now a star student at USC, having just won the Best New Designer of the Year award. As a consultant on this game, the host asked, "Is there anything you'd like to say, Miss Hayes?" Sophia smiled at Ethan. I'd like to say that the real-life emotion engine is a lot more complex than the games. And sometimes, the best relationships start by accident. Just then, Ethan dropped to one knee, pulling a ring from his pocket. Sophia, our marriage started with a stupid bet. But I want to ask you, for real this time, will you marry me? A real marriage, no contracts, no deadlines. Her eyes instantly filled with tears. The audience held its breath, cameras zooming in on the unexpected proposal. Yes, she whispered, her voice carrying through the microphone. I will. As the crowd cheered, Ethan slipped the ring on her finger, and they kissed under the bright lights. No one noticed a well-dressed, middle-aged man standing in the back row, watching the scene with a complex expression on his face. After the press conference, Ethan and Sophia walked out hand in hand, only to come face-to-face with a man, Harrison Hayes. Sophia froze, her grip on Ethan's hand tightening. Dad, her voice trembled. Harrison ignored her, his eyes fixed on Ethan. The physics engine in Accidental Marriage. You developed it independently. Ethan nodded. Yes, Mr. Hayes. Interesting, Harrison said. His expression was still stern, but his eyes had softened. I saw the demo. The technology is very mature. An awkward silence hung between them. Finally, Harrison sighed and pulled an envelope from his briefcase, handing it to Sophia. Your diploma. The university president delivered it to my office personally. Sophia took it, her hands shaking. Why? Because you proved yourself. Harrison's gaze fell on their clasped hands. In your studies and in your personal life. Ethan and Sophia looked at each other, unable to believe what was happening. Next week is the anniversary of your mother's death, Harrison said before turning to leave. Bring him home. I think she would have liked her son-in-law. Watching her father walk away, Sophia's tears finally fell. Ethan wrapped his arms around her and whispered in her ear, "See, I told you we'd find a way." A year later, they returned to the same city hall where it had all started and had a proper wedding ceremony. This time, there was no alcohol, no bet, just two people who truly loved each other. As the clerk handed them their new marriage certificate, Ethan looked at their smiling faces in the photo. "This time, it's real," he said softly. Sophia smiled and kissed him. "It was always real. It just took us a while to figure it out." They walked out into the bright sunlight, their future stretching out before them, full of promise.